Michael. How are you?
Let's do this thing, Martin. I am super. How are you doing?
Yep, doing great, doing great. We have so many great topics today.
So many topics, so little time, as we like to say.
Yes.
I'd like to say hello to everybody and welcome to AGTP Insights number 131, Martin.
Yeah.
131. We go live every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We talk about and discuss the most important tech stories and things impacting tech in the United States. Today's Thursday, hard to believe, the 6th of August, 2026. We want to talk about SpaceX. I want to look at their stock price. You know, this is like my big thing. Announces a partnership with Nvidia on Orbital AI satellites. We spoke to somebody today about that. We'll run through that too. Anthropic also announces the hiring of a chip design team. Everybody wants to be in the chip business suddenly. DeepMind's AI team leaders leave to build their own company. Meta enters the Agentic AI coding race. And then we are going to have some guests. Initially, we're going to have Chithra Rajagopalan, CFO at Obsidian Security, is going to talk to us about how AI agent security can change the way enterprises manage risk, and Obsidian's most recent capital raise, which is interesting in its own right. Later in the show, we're going to be joined by Chernofsky, the CMO at Placer.ai, to explore how AI-powered location intelligence can just help people and retailers make better property and commercial property decisions for their businesses. Following that, we'll welcome Avery Ching, who seems to be a very popular young man, CEO and co-founder at Aptos Labs, to discuss how blockchain infrastructure for AI agents could reshape enterprise finance and institutional markets. And then finally, Eliman Dambell, founder at ReClym Health, is going to join us to talk about how AI-powered practice infrastructure will help independent healthcare providers improve care, reduce administrative work, and build more sustainable businesses. Martin, let's run through this stuff. So SpaceX, let's talk about it, and Nvidia are working together on the compute payload, Martin, for something they're calling StarMind AI-1.
Okay.
I kind of like the way the NASA named stuff better. Apollo 11. It just sounds cooler. I don't know. It sounds like you could make a movie about it, but it's not Colossus, but it could be colossal. This is the first planned satellite in SpaceX's Orbital AI network. The satellite is being designed around NVIDIA's Vera CPUs and Rubin GPUs. I feel like Vera is like Sam Altman's, not Sam Altman. I was going to say Jensen Huang's like aunt's name. Vera sounds like somebody who's in their 60s. And Rubin GPUs packaged as a modified Vera Rubin NVL72 system. SpaceX says it intends to begin launching the satellites in 2027.
Oh, wow. Very soon.
Yeah, that's really soon, Martin.
That's like tomorrow, basically.
Like next week, it feels like to me. I don't know. I mean, seriously, blink your eyes. If it's not 2027 yet, let me know.
Yes, no, it's true. It's true.
It's true. What it feels like to me.
It feels like 2026 is like almost gone. And it feels
every
like
time I talk to you, like, we still have time to do this thing. I'm like, all right, it's just August. Already August? I can't really tell how I feel about this. But yeah, it's only August, but even though it feels like it could be 2028 tomorrow. Here's the other interesting thing, Martin. This AI-1 is not like a data center in the conventional sense. Because like, what do you think of when you think of a data center? I think of like this gigantic building in the middle of some really small town in Tennessee. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, with like a bunch of computers inside and a bunch of ACs because it needs to be cool, and then plenty of people who need to take care of that. That's how I imagine this. Yeah.
Some security guard from like South Carolina who's never had like a job in his whole life. That's like a fake gun. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what I think about when I think of a data center.
You know, by the way, talking about security, I don't know, like 9-10 years ago when I was in Palo Alto, like I went to the Facebook headquarters, and as soon as you enter, there is a guy on a bike who come and say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" It takes them like literally 5 seconds to intercept you. I would say. I think that's the word.
Someone using a bicycle?
He was on a bicycle, yeah.
I want this guy to be on a Segway. You know what a Segway is, right?
Yes.
That's what I want. I want him to roll up on a Segway, which when it was first introduced seemed pretty cool, but now when you see one, you're like,
Yeah, true. True. But the guy were very polite, very nice, but just like it made you understand super fast that you have to go back. Like
you just rocked up to
yeah, I was like, you know what, like let's just have a look. I did the same for Google, did the same for YouTube, and no one asked you anything in these companies. But Facebook, in literally 5 seconds, there were a guy who went out of nowhere and just say, okay, thank you very much, guys, but there is nothing for you to see here. Very polite, very nice, but go away, please, basically.
Look, I was Mark Zuckerberg's roommate in college. He owes me $10.
Yes,
That's not gonna work.
I was trying to get back your $10, Michael. That's why.
No, it's not mine. It's yours. I was never in Palo Alto. But this is the thing. So this is not like a conventional data center. It's like a large computing satellite.
Okay.
And it's got a peak load of 150 kilowatts. And it has a solar array, right? Like that's how they get power. You know what an array is for solar, right? Which is like 70 meters long. It's got to unfold.
Oh, okay.
It has to. There's no, I mean, how would they put 70 meters of stuff inside of a rock? It's got to unfold at some level.
So it's like something like this that's unfold, basically. Yeah? That's the idea.
That kind of looks AI generated, but if it's not, that's probably what it looks like.
Yes, that's the picture from SpaceX themselves.
Let me just see. My arms are
pretty much the same, yeah, 17 meters.
pretty much the same. 70 of that, I guess. And it's going to use Starlink.
Okay.
To connect back to the Earth. And I think the Starlink, I think we did a segment on this a while ago, but Starlink is obviously getting faster. The satellites for Starlink are getting smaller. I forget exactly how many satellites they have up in space already, but it's more than one. Do you know what I mean? Like they have a lot of stuff up there. And the other interesting thing is, first of all, they've committed to just using Nvidia equipment.
Okay.
Which I think is pretty interesting. And it gives it a more credible feeling. Like if Elon Musk just came out and said, I'm going to have some guy in a white suit dancing on stage to be like my example of what our robots look like, nobody would really believe it. I find Elon Musk to be like one of the funniest guys in the world. But anyway, but you know, Nvidia is a serious company. Jensen Huang is like a serious dude. And I feel like having this partnership with them gives this like a second level of seriousness that it may not already have. And
I mean, on the other hand, like they are a client, huh? Like they are buying the chips, huh? So Jensen Huang, like he's just everywhere that he needs to be, huh? Like if they are SpaceX AI, they are not making their own chips. They either need to build them or they need to buy them. So they take the route of buying them. So Nvidia needs to be there. Like that's potential clients, potential big clients. So yeah, I think he's just playing his role here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, and I think it gives it some seriousness as well. The Starmind vision, like having all these satellites in space, still remains like a proposal. Remember that the FCC has accepted SpaceX's application for consideration, but it's not granted permission for them to put this full system up in the sky yet.
Okay. Okay. So they say we are going to do it. We are going to do it with Nvidia, but the US government didn't say okay yet. They
Not
said
yet.
not yet. Okay, not yet.
But doesn't it feel unlikely? Like, why would they say no?
Yes, no, it's true. It's true. Why would they say no? But also, like, Michael, like, I don't know how Starlink is going to be okay at scale in every country in the world. Like, I feel like while they are small, that's okay. But how they are going to bypass like all the law and regulation that the telcos has, like the telco are heavily regulated.
Do you want to have this conversation?
I mean, yes. Like,
how much research have you done on this conversation before you jump into it?
Not too much, just a feeling. So that's why, like, if you have some insight to share with us, you are most welcome.
So the only insight I have is that one of the announcements that they've also made on the earnings call was that they want to start their own mobile company, their mobile phone company. So they want to use Starlink, and they want to use Starlink as the basis to do this. That's one of the reasons why they want to, and they want to bypass, like, not bypass the regulations, but you know, every Starlink installation is almost like a cell tower for them at some level, right? And I think they have 12 million Starlink subscribers globally, not including the governments that they have out there, right? We know that in Europe, that both Russia and Ukraine also were using Starlink as well. Yes. And that, you know, it's not ubiquitous, but it is in a lot of places. And yeah, I don't know what the implications are for this, but they do want to start their own mobile phone network. And that mobile phone network could be turned on globally like tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if they could somehow get around the regulations for it, yeah.
And at the same time, like right now, like for example, let's take France, but every country in the world is doing some version of that. Right now, they are talking about regulating social media for everyone, and the way to enforce these regulations is through the telcos. So they say to the telco, here is how we are going to enforce all the new laws that we do. So how is Starlink going to fit into this system with every country in the world? That's really like I have no idea how they're going to do that. And I don't think every country in the world is going to be okay that now they can't control the internet at all. I don't think this is going to be possible. So they will need to fit somewhere. And how this is gonna work, that's really the big question for me. So I
Has the
think
way, yeah, it's a huge question for me as well, and I wonder like how the regulatory infrastructure that's out there can actually control somebody. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do they know if the phone that you're carrying is connected to Starlink or connected to, you know, the Singaporean phone company or True or do you know what I mean? Like, how would they possibly know?
So I think right now the way it works is that because we get the internet from the internet provider, then if they
Yep.
block whatever they want at the level of the internet provider, they can do what they want. Let's take one very simple example. If tomorrow France wants to ban Google.com, they don't want anyone to use Google.com in France,
Yep.
then they will go to all the internet provider in France, which is like 3 of them, so it's very simple. And they will say to them, now on your network, people cannot access Google.com. Okay, and so then that's how they can enforce the law. But because Starlink is bypassing all of that,
That's the point already.
and they just provide the internet to everybody directly, right? Like I don't know how they are going to be able to fit into the existing scheme that the governments need and use every day to enforce laws about the internet. And the government are not going to be like, okay, now we can't do that anymore because everybody use Starlink, we are screwed. I don't believe this theory at all. I don't think that's possible. So Starlink will need to fit into the existing scheme somehow. And I don't know how this is going to play out. I think this is a big question for me.
Yeah, I don't understand like
Yeah.
exactly how, because remember you and I were thinking about using Starlink what, a year ago or 2 years ago when we
Yes,
wanted
yes,
to
yes,
have our
yes,
own
yes.
dedicated internet connection. There was no way for anybody to stop us from bringing like a Starlink
Exactly.
connectivity kit into the place where we were going because it's not
Yes.
that big.
And then we bypass all the regulation. Like for example, you go to China, right? And then you can all of a sudden do whatever you want on the internet, and you can just sell freely access to everything. And same for Russia, same for everything. It feels okay while Starlink is small, but it feels completely wrong at scale. It cannot work at scale, right?
No.
So, and there is like this type of government's oversight, like about the internet, like absolutely everywhere, like every country in the world has some sort of laws and regulation, and that's not necessarily the same between countries. And this is a very important tool, like for politics, for for
Well, we saw
protecting
during
child and all of this.
I don't want, I never want to talk about geopolitics, right? Because one, I don't study it enough, but two, it's just like it's too toxic or too corrosive to talk about. But like
Yep.
during and it's still going on, the Ukraine-Russia war, there was a time where SpaceX like turned off. I don't know if it was Russia's connectivity or Ukraine's connectivity, and they were just like sitting there in the dark.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
think
yes,
it was
yes, yes, yes.
Ukraine, right?
So you can't let one US company have this type of power over the entire world, basically.
No.
So I think this is a question that isn't answered yet, and we will need an answer. Like once again, right now they are small, they don't have big market share, so nobody really cares. But in case they grow and they start launching this type of satellite at scale, and more people use their services, like the governments are not going to be okay to be bypassed like this. Like
Right.
this is not gonna be okay at all.
But I think this is one of the things that fits into the sort of valuation of SpaceX as well, is this idea of like they're trying to build a whole bunch of different stuff that like in some ways is unregulated. I mean, who else has the ability to put their own satellites into space?
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think
So like when Nvidia said, because Nvidia could have worked with Amazon on their Leo project, right? And maybe they will, but Amazon, even though what is it, Deep Blue or Blue Horizon? I can't remember what it's called. Blue Origin, yeah.
Blue Origin, yeah, Blue Origin.
But Blue Origin's not owned by AWS. It's not owned by Amazon. It's owned by Jeff Bezos. So it's not part of the same conglomerate, although it's related in some way. But in the case of SpaceX, the SpaceX, it's in the name. Like they own a rocket company And they're the only ones who can actually put up their own satellites. And if they have to make a decision of, do we put up a satellite for a competitor or do we put up our own? What do you think they're going to do, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they're going to put
exactly,
up their
for
own
sure.
satellites. So it gives them an extra advantage.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
no, for sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
but look, and we had a conversation today with another guy named Eliman, right? Who is in the crypto, no, sorry, he's in the blockchain and AI space. And he had pretty strong opinions, right, about the extra capacity that is already sitting on Earth
Mm.
for artificial intelligence data centers that's like completely underused. He was
Yes.
like, only 12% of data center capacity is actually being used. And the other 88% is he feels like he's going to build a platform to do sort of data center allocation in real time for artificial intelligence. And when I asked him pretty directly, what do you think about data centers in space? He was like, yeah, at some point that's probably going to be, which surprised me when he said that, right? Like, did that
Hmm.
surprise you at all or no?
I feel like the world is bifurcated. There's some people who say yes, and people who say no. And once again, like we didn't talk to someone who is in the yes side, so I really won't talk to someone on the yes side before I have an opinion on that. I really don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I keep asking people, right? Every time we
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
to
yeah,
people
yeah.
that are either in the data center business or in some kind of business related to it, I always ask them, like, what do you think about data centers in space? And most people like, don't really want to give an opinion, which is
Hmm.
fair enough, right? Because maybe they don't have enough information either. But I think
Yep.
the one guy in Australia who's been in the data center business his whole life, he was like, yeah, it's not necessary. But again,
Hmm.
one guy. I don't think that that statistically is relevant, to be fair.
No, but also like maybe Musk is seeing something, right? Like maybe there is not only this idea of putting data centers in the sky because it's hard to put them on Earth. Like maybe there is more to it, right? And I think Elon Musk has pretty well proven that it can have a vision on 10 years of like how things can be and multiple plans in case this happen or that happen or this happen or that happen. I think he's pretty good at this that type of thing. Not doing like massive media project that may be very important in 10 years or in 15 years. Not really today as of yet, I think. So
Mm.
I think it's pretty good at that, and also pretty good at saying crazy stuff, right? Like that just like get everybody excited or everybody like behind him or against him, right? But like you always say like, okay, this is the goal. Like for example, here he said like they are going to make $1 trillion in revenue by 2030. So basically in 3 years, right? Like 2027,
I mean, you also said on the
2028.
earnings call that they were going to annualize by the end of this year $100 billion run rate.
Again, they are what, like 20 now? Something like that?
20, because that would be like $8.5 billion a month
Of of new income.
of new income.
Of new income. And then you want to get to $1 trillion, so $1,000 billion in 4 years. I was checking the largest companies in the world right now, they make 700 billion per year. It's Amazon and Walmart. That's the two largest, 700 billions. They have been here forever. Anything is going to be basically like 50% bigger than them in 3 years. It looks absolutely insane to me. Like how he's going to do that. Is it compute? Is it inference? Does he think like all of a sudden everyone is going to need so much AI? But at the same time, as you said, and actually that's true. I did some research as well. Like after our episode of ATP, there is indeed like only 15% of the world capacity in terms of data centers that is used. And so yeah, it doesn't look like we're gonna need 1,000 times more in 3 years, and all of this money is going to SpaceX. Doesn't feel like that doesn't feel something like this to me at all. And then they will also run into the problem of chips. They will run into the problems of components, like everybody else, basically, right? Like they don't have. It's not because they put them on space that they don't need GPUs or CPUs anymore. No, no, no. They also need them too, right?
They probably need a
S-
few extra ones, right? Because of, like servicing them, and I've said this a lot,
yeah,
it's going to be more
yeah,
difficult than it would be to service them on the ground. So they're going to need some
yeah, yeah,
redundancy
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
We would need some redundancy. Yeah, so I mean, maybe that's a big goal, right? And maybe we are witnessing right now something super new, super unique that is going to be super important in 10 years. But I think the timeline that he's giving is really fast. So it's too fast. I think we need to add maybe plus 5 years to all of his numbers and to all of his projection.
I think 5 years. I'm tired of being skeptical of Elon Musk. He's been saying for 10. So there was a really good post today on X, and I wish I had clipped it, but I don't have it right now. But some guy who was just like, he's been promising robo-taxis in Texas for like the last 10 years. And now he's saying that they're going to be there for like by the end of the year. It just feels unlikely. And getting to $1 trillion of revenue, it's 80 something billion dollars a month. It would be more money than most like Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 companies make in a year. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like, what did we say Facebook revenue was? 235 billion.
Something like that. Yes.
Something like that, right? I can't remember, but that was a good number. But even a couple of years ago, it was 123 billion, 185 billion, like stuff like that. So the fact that they're saying in 2030, which frankly is 4 years ago, 4 years not ago from now, they're going to have $1 trillion of revenue.
4 times what Facebook is making, basically.
4 times what Facebook is making. Again, when they're competing with Facebook and Google and DeepSeek and all these other and OpenAI and Anthropic for the same type of business. And remember, part of this is on the infrastructure side as well. They think they're going to get paid $50 billion for capacity. I was reading something else, right? For their data center stuff. Mm-hmm. I just can't imagine. But remember, Anthropic has signed a deal with them for $10 billion for more than 1 year.
Yes.
So just the math just doesn't work. You're a math guy. Does the math work for you?
And plus that there's OpenAI, there's Anthropic, but then there's not like 20 else which can be their clients. There's really just 2, right? And there's just 2 who have massive competition who come from China. And the Chinese, they are only going to buy Chinese stuff. They are never going to buy SpaceX. So who else is going to spend $20 billion per year at SpaceX besides OpenAI and Anthropic? Who else is going to do
But per year, they'd have to spend
per year,
$200 billion per year if there are only 5 of them to get to $1 trillion in revenue. Do you know what I mean? And that's just for the infra business. But at some point, but SpaceX. Does SpaceX deliver payloads for anybody else except for XAI? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is that business? I think it's an $8 billion per quarter business. That's $32 billion, but it still have to be 30 times more than that. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's Cursor, there's Starlink, but it's all tiny. Like we are talking like about like maybe 10, 15 billion on average per product, and there's like 2 or 3 products, something like that, right? So no, we are really close. We are really far. But once again, like we are really, really far from $1 trillion, and everybody right now is paying them money. Like I think that's pretty much all the clients that they can have. Like, there is not a pool of 10 times more clients, right? So sure, like they can start, like for example, like like everything that AWS is going to do with running your AI on their infrastructure, and then they sell it to you, like basically like all the off-prem, all the cloud computing that we've been doing, Amazon, Google. And Microsoft Azure can do the same thing. Space.ai can get into this business as well. But okay, sure, that's possible. But now they have 3 massive competitors. Alibaba Cloud, Huawei, they are also doing it for the Asian part of the world. And is it going to be like a business that get them to $1 trillion in a market that's already very competitive and it's not that big in total, right? Like there is not $1 trillion right now that is spent.
Doesn't feel like it.
So how do you want them to capture the entire market and more with competition and with no customer relationship as of now, right? Like Amazon has a massive head start into this business. They have both the satellites and also all the on-the-ground data centers, but more importantly, they have all the clients' relationship as well.
And,
they
all the models that you can run via Bedrock. Yeah,
and they
so
have
it's a completely different business model.
And so that's why, like, if SAI want to get into this business, like hosting AI as well and doing inference for companies, which can be a massive business and a massive growth as well, because once the banks get into it, once the insurance gets into it, and we are going to talk about like massive bills, they are going to spend a lot of money on this AI infrastructure. But it's going to be super competitive, and Amazon, Google, and Microsoft have a head start all already. Pick any insurance company that you want. Like the first one that comes to mind is FWD. They have part of their infrastructure already on Amazon, on Microsoft Azure, or on Google. They already know the team. The next step is to deploy AI with them. It's going to be such a hard sell to get them to deploy AI in space with edge AI. I think
I
it's
actually think,
super
we
hard.
talked about this, I actually think it's more likely that some of these corporates would actually use Facebook, because they've already been using their advertising business for more than 2 decades.
So they also probably use like for their database, for their website,
That's my
for
point, though,
all of
right? So,
this.
like, why would they go to SpaceX or
Exactly.
XAI when they already have
Yeah.
corporate relationships with some of these other companies?
Exactly. Yeah.
And we also saw today that Facebook announced that their pricing was pretty cheap, actually, for some of their inference costs as well. Right? I forget what the actual survey was that they were on, but that's pretty. It ended up being relatively reasonably priced, right?
Yes. Yep. So there are a lot of questions here, but that's interesting. And yeah, we are witnessing the expansion of humans into space. I think that's always cool to see. I would not buy SpaceX stocks myself. Like I don't know where they are going. I don't know. I don't know if it makes any sense. All of these things.
So I
But
want to make a point about this too, right? So when this announcement hit about Nvidia partnering with SpaceX, the stock actually spiked up quite a bit. It went from, what was it, 105 or 107, let's just say 108, all the way up to 125.
yeah,
And then yesterday it closed back down at 108.
yeah, it went better.
It's trading 115 now, but I think this stock is actually going to end up being really, really volatile. And I think it's going to be really, really news driven. But remember as well that there's still an overhang of people that have the stock, that were allocated it in the IPO, and that are going to want to sell.
Yes, and then they were the first batch of sell yesterday, I think, if I remember.
Yep, which is one of the reasons why
yeah,
the stock got killed yesterday.
so a lot of people could sell their stock after the IPO. But the first batch of people could sell their stock yesterday. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it cannot be something else than news driven because there is no fundamentals, right? Like there is no profit, there is so little revenue.
Nothing's changing. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like now they are at $1.4 trillion valuation. So like a lot lower than the IPO. Huh? Now they're like what, 15%, 20% close to lower than the IPO?
Yeah, whatever 20 over 135 is.
Yeah.
But again, it's traded as low as 105.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, let's see how it goes. I think interesting story to see like how we are going to space, but as a business, and yeah, I'm very, very skeptical. So
again, I don't want to be an Elon Musk skeptic, but like he's done. If you like, there are a lot of people out there that are like what I'll call Elon Musk apologists, right? They want him to be right on all this stuff. But I just don't think he's going to meet some of these targets, even just to get to $100 billion in annualized recurring revenue by the end of this year. Just feels hard. Remember, it is August already. So
Elon Musk never hits the target. That's the definition of Musk. Everything he says, it's amplified 10 times. He never says the truth. Never. It never happens. So yeah. So how the market is going to react when what he says doesn't happen, which is absolutely normal.
All the time.
It's absolutely all the time. Which is, by the way, like maybe we can make a little side story, but like most of the big tech CEOs, that everything that they say is super exaggerated all the time, right?
But is it? I mean, is what Tim Cook said super exaggerated? I mean, okay, sorry. During the Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, this is the most amazing device we've ever developed in our whole, like, my language. Right?
Apple Intelligence as well. The AI stands for Apple Intelligence, right? Like maybe it's not all the time. Like for Elon Musk, it's all the time. Like 100% of the time, it's way too big. But there is always some phase that every other big tech CEOs is absolutely saying crazy thing, 10 times bigger than the truth.
Let's just say if Elon Musk's mouth is open, some exaggeration is definitely coming out of it.
Exactly, and everything is massively exaggerated when Elon Musk is saying something. I feel there's only the lady who founded Thinking Machine Labs, Murati. She's the only one who say, "Let's see, we'll see." She's the only one who say, "We release this model. maybe it's good. Try, like she's like, yeah, we are going to work on this. We
We're
feel
not
it can
100%
work.
sure. Let's see what
We'll
happens.
see. She's the only one. She's so different than everybody else. she's always communicating, like tiptoeing into things, which is the exact opposite than everybody else. So yeah. But yeah,
Oh, God.
do you want to talk about like the few tweets, Michael, that you selected that were
Yeah,
pretty impressive?
let's put up the second one. I think that's actually more
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've been through some of this, but it's good to go through this, I think, in a certain order. Yeah, let's put up the first tweet.
Okay. The first one, so the one from
The first one's pretty. The first one, actually, we've already talked about it, so it's hard to put it up again. We should have put it up at the beginning, but yeah, fair enough.
So we can do the one from right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think this stuff is actually pretty interesting. You want to run through this? So SpaceX will end the year at more than $100 billion of AR, possibly more. And this guy is actually interesting because these are his highlights. These are his takeaways. So he's either listened to the call or he's read about the call. And the interesting for me is there's no like, what's the word? There's no analysis here. He just like published it out there. He just threw it out there and said, "Yep, I'm not gonna question this at all." I think there's a problem with this $100 billion. Like, it's August. What are we? August 6th already?
Yes,
Even if they're at 20 billion, they're gonna have to be 5 times higher than they are right now on an ARR basis. I think somebody should at least ask a question. And then the second one as well. Elon expects SpaceX to reach $1 trillion in the calendar year revenues in 2030, possibly in 2029.
Yes,
2029.
yes.
What's your view on that? That's got to be impossible, no?
I mean, we've already spent like 10 minutes to say that 2030 is very unlikely and highly exaggerated. So 2029 is like even feels like it's even less likely, definitely.
We used to say, like, if he hits that target number, I'll eat my hat, because people used to wear hats. So like, I don't have a hat, but like, you can't say it anymore. But there's some other things that are interesting here too. Current compute is at 1.4 gigawatts. They'll end the year at 2, which makes sense. They're building slowly. But their aspiration is to grow to 10 gigawatts until the end of 2027. So again, we didn't talk about the compute power, but they want to have 5 times as much compute power in the next year.
Yeah.
I know they've been exaggerating, but still 5 times as much. Particularly, remember, we're in a constrained environment, right? Where building stuff is hard. Just getting the approval to build stuff is hard. I haven't seen any information on Colossus 3 or Colossus 4. So that feels kind of unlikely to me. I get the aspirational part of it, and I like it, right?
Yes.
I like leadership that has like big aspirations, but I'd like them to be a little bit more realistic. And then the next one, this is interesting too. SpaceX is only going to use Nvidia hardware.
Yes.
So this was part of the announcement that they made I'm going to say today, but it was actually yesterday, right? But that announcement was made only for the hardware, I believe, that they're going to use for their stuff in space. No? I
think so. The way that I understood it was Nvidia is going to be used for their satellite. Yes. The way.
Right. So it's so not just using. So that's actually not 100% true. If we understand this correctly, and I'm pointing over to my other screen, right?
Yeah.
But and here's the other thing, Martin. In a constrained environment where I won't say that GPUs are fungible, because they're definitely not, but other chips are going to come online between now and the end of 2027. And it leads me to believe that while they've made an announcement today with Nvidia, or yesterday, excuse me, with Nvidia, that if Nvidia cannot build these chips fast enough at a scale that's big enough to build what SpaceX wants to build in conjunction with Nvidia, that it's going to be hard to use them just exclusively.
Yes. I think this is very. No, you're right. Like, it feels like so risky, right, to do like an exclusive deal with a provider like that is so important and so key to your future growth. Plus that is constrained, and plus, once again, like, the cheap part of the AI stack is the one that I'm the least like that. Like, it's the one where I would put the least amount of money if it was me, because there's so much competition, so much innovation, and we don't know who is going to be the best in 3 years. Yeah. I don't think Elon Musk has 10 times more information than us right now,
No,
and he knows
I don't think so
exactly
either.
for sure that in 5 years, this company is going to make the best chip. I don't think anyone as of now knows. I think it's impossible. Or everyone who believe they know, I think they take such a massive risk, like really so big, because once again, we can have a new guy who makes chip to just pop up tomorrow, right? It's not like it's simple. It's just like we are in a situation where everybody is trying something right now when it comes to the chip, right? So people have ideas, people see things, people believe in things, and so because there's so many people who are trying things right now, we don't know who is going to win. That's very simple. And so yeah, but I feel like they say right now that it's exclusive. That's for the announcements.
Mm,
But they are not stupid. They know how to run a business. Like they know
exactly.
very
And
well
also
how
this
to.
is for their Vera Rubin chips, which is the next
Mhm.
generation after the Blackwell, which is the following generation after their Hooper, I think, chips as well, right?
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
those chips are expected to
Mhm.
be shipping in the second half of 2026.
Okay.
We're in the second half of 2026.
So soon. So then they install them in the satellites. They launch the satellite next year, and they get to 10 gigawatts of compute. That's the
That
plan.
seems
Okay.
way too easy to me. They just install them in the satellite. Like they just take a screwdriver. Hey, Bob, can you just put those in? Like I don't think it works that way. Anyway, so there's a lot of variables here. Um, they do plan to launch the first AI satellites next year. I think that could come under the same category if they plan to launch robotaxis in Austin, Texas, 5 years ago. But again, we don't know, and we don't know what the status of the satellite build out is, right? Where those satellites are being made, who's manufacturing them, and stuff like that. But that's also interesting to me. And here's what's actually really interesting, and I don't think that I would necessarily dispute this. They're building compute, and they say that their payback for compute is less than 1 year. And I think
Yeah,
if you look at, say that again.
I think that's highly possible. Yeah.
I think it's highly possible as well. This is the
Mhm,
first thing that's actually on this list where I'm like, yeah, it makes sense because
mhm, mhm.
it's like putting a tin of ice cream out in the middle of the road in Bangkok and just saying it's not going to melt. Like it's just too hot out there. And I think that the demand for compute right now is so high.
So high.
And also that people will pay anything for it. We've already seen companies like Anthropic and frankly OpenAI try to get compute so that they can do all their training, but also run their inference businesses as well.
Yep.
And they're willing to pay almost anything for it because at least at this point in time, it's not their money, right? It's investor money. So they can literally put down like 10 billion, $20 billion for whatever it costs. So we can get that, the new compute. So I think having that payback in less than a year makes perfect sense to me. And there's a lot of competition for that compute as well. So if I bid 10 billion for it, you may bid 11 billion for it. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm,
I
mhm,
don't
mhm.
think that is craziness.
Yes, no. I think there's like a really interesting situation here with compute where at the same time it's hard to build, so which means it creates some scarcity
Mm-hmm.
on available compute. But at the same time, if you want to build new compute, then you need chips, and chips are scarce as well, right? So Nvidia can then maybe like also say, oh, look guys, next year we can only produce 1,000 of them. So who want to buy them? You, SpaceX. Okay, so then sorry, OpenAI, we can't sell them to you. Basically, like this type of situation may also happen, and so everybody tried to get more compute, but that's hard. And now SpaceX said, yeah, but we do not put compute in space, so now we have less problem, which makes it less scarce as well. Like it's so weird. Like it looks like there's so many different things. And I think at the end of the day, and plus also, I think like what's going on here is that you know the same thing like in software where you say, okay, my software costs me, let's say at first, like $1 million per year to run. That's my fixed cost for servers, for team, and for everything.
Yep.
So for my first 1,000 clients to whom I sell it for $500, then I will lose a lot of money. But then from clients number 2,000, I will start to make money. So I think we're in the same type of situation here with compute, where the models, they want to secure as much compute as they can, because then it's gonna prevent their competitor to get them, even if they lose money right now. And then when they get more scale, then maybe they will be able to make money later. So I think there's like all of these things going on at the same time for the same compute, and maybe there is more as well. Like, that's just like a few ideas that I just had right now, but
Right.
there's probably even more forces that are just like going for this compute. um yeah, I think it's there's tons of stuff going on, which at the end of the day makes everyone wants compute, wants to build compute, and we will need more. And it makes ton of sense that that we are going to use more. Yep.
So here's another thing that I think is actually really interesting.
Mhm.
And this is the tweet that I was looking at before that I told you I don't know if I could find. This, according to the earnings call, they say they could sell 1 gigawatt of compute for as much as $50 billion per year.
Oh wow.
So 10 gigawatts equals 500 billion, which puts the $1 trillion revenue goal into perspective.
Okay.
We don't have any way to get $50 billion per year.
So wait, we can check like the Anthropic deal. Like Anthropic deal SpaceX. Because they do like 1 billion per month, but for how much compute? Let me check. How so 1.25 billion per month for 300 megawatts. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We are not far. That's like 4 point something for a gigawatt. So 4 billion something for per month for 1 gigawatt. So that's roughly 50 billion per year. Yeah, this is exactly what the deal that they did with Anthropic. But Anthropic bought them 300 megawatts, not 1 gigawatt. Right. So so here they assume that they can sell 3 times. I don't know, not 3 times, in fact 3 times times 10, because then they wanted to get to 10 gigawatts. So they assume that they're going to sell 30 times more than they are currently selling at the same price.
Right.
Okay. So which means they believe they're going to have 30 clients like Anthropic. Okay. Or maybe Anthropic is going to get bigger, but they believe in total, as of now, like if we take Anthropic right now, there is going to be 30 companies like this that are going to spend the exact same amount at the same price. This is what it means.
And that's just to put that into perspective. And then the following thing is Starship will rapidly increase its launch cadence. 1 year from now, they plan to launch once per day.
Oh, wow.
Can I just make the point that, like, you still, there's no fixed number of rockets that SpaceX has.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done 13 integrated flight tests. 13.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my math is not that good.
It is 13 only?
But it's exactly. Again,
wait.
According to Gemini.
I thought you were going to say 13 per week or 13 per month. I was like waiting for the next thing.
Total launch 13 integrated flight tests completed according to Wikipedia, which is being sourced here by Gemini.
But wait, they have like 10,000 satellites in the sky, something like that. So they have a lot. SpaceX.
Yeah, but they didn't necessarily launch all those satellites on their own with their own rockets, right?
Nope. No. So okay, so it means that they would use other people. Yeah, they have more than 12,500.
Yeah, but they're expecting themselves. Starship, right, will rapidly increase its launch. Starship is the rocket that SpaceX makes.
Okay.
1 year from now, they plan to launch once per day. Now they've launched stuff recently that has exploded.
Yes.
So I don't know if they're counting explosions in this number. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Like, to be super precise, Starship will rapidly increase here. So right now they use reusable Falcon 9 rockets. Yep. So that's what they do.
They're testing the Starship rockets, but the point is that, like,
yeah,
they're still not perfected. They expect to launch one 365 times next year.
And they did only 13 so far.
Tests, 13 tests.
13 tests. Okay.
And they expect 1 year from now, they plan to launch once per day. Okay, but 1 year from now, so on next year, on August 6th, they plan to launch one rocket. One per day. They didn't say every day. They just said once per day.
Yes, no, it is very interesting. Yeah, it is a very huge growth, from 13 tests to 1 per day in just a year. Yep, it is something. Huh? It is something. I mean, once again, it goes into the massive numbers that Elon Musk loves to tell.
Exactly.
Which by the way, for everybody listening, if you have any question, if you want us like to, I don't know, if we go a little bit fast, or if you have also any opinions about like all of these things that we discussed, feel free to put them in the chat. We're very happy to discuss all of these things with you and to answer all of your questions.
Martin, let's look at one. Let's look at another tweet, the one from Crypto Tweets, right? Because I think there's some interesting stuff in here, right?
Let's go.
Tell me when you put it up. Okay, there it
Yes.
is. So again, they just go over the announcement. They say Nvidia is going to provide the hardware and develop the onboard computing systems for the orbital data center. That's pretty standard. But here's the other interesting thing that wasn't mentioned: the satellite's going to be powered by continuous solar energy and radiate the heat directly into space instead of relying on conventional cooling systems. And they expect to launch the first test satellites. This is new information. Test satellites in 2027, with commercial AI computing from orbit is targeted to begin in 2028. So now that's getting pushed out even further. This feels slightly more realistic, right? And again, it doesn't say when in 2028.
So which means it's not the same satellite that they use right now for Starlink, because we have 12,000 again, and Starlink are like more like low Earth orbit, right? That it's like lower stuff. So which means this is different satellites, which they haven't launched yet.
No, they haven't, and they expect to test it in 2020. But the reason why I want to do it in this order is because this gives more information. And it feels slightly more realistic.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, and I think that Philip has actually, that's our very, very close friend. We've been to his wedding, not really. Philip Johnston. Philip, I know you're listening. I know you're listening.
Come on the show. We have so many
Come on the show, man. I promise not to talk about your old e-commerce company. I promise. But the point is that like that cooling mechanism has not been tested yet in space.
That is interesting. So which means like
that needs to get done as well, and that's true for StarCloud and for SpaceX.
But so do you think like they really have no clue if it's gonna work or not? Like it feels like in a way like maybe the tech team at SpaceX, they are like so scared. They are like, Elon Musk says we are going to do these things and we don't even know if it's one is gonna work. We launch the test next year and he already said we are going to make $1 trillion. We're gonna have 10 gigawatts, blah 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 blah, and the engineers are like, we didn't even know if this is going to work. I can
just
see
see him in your office going like, does satellite have 2 T's or 2 L's? I just can't be sure.
Exactly. Which one do we put for cooling? Like how does that work, right? Yeah, it's really crazy that they have done 0 tests and they announced these big numbers. But that's really interesting because they don't say it this way. They say, hey, we're gonna achieve this, and then there's very few people who are actually going deep and deep and deep and deep, like we are doing right now, to actually say, wait a minute, you didn't even try yet, right? So like first try, and then we talk, right? And it looks like Musk here. I mean, now they are a public company and he needs to protect his stock, right? He needs to protect his price. So I think he needs to do this type of thing and to not really say exactly the truth, I would say, on the tech side, because yeah, they haven't even tested it. So
to be fair, one of the other tweets that I read today was like, Elon Musk should hire somebody else to do all the public speaking for SpaceX, because everything that comes out of his mouth is some kind of fabricated BS. No, not my words, somebody else's words. And not just as it relates to SpaceX, but as it relates to Tesla as well. I haven't looked at the Tesla stock today, TSLA stock price. I just want to do like a max on it. No, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Tesla, because
but it's muddled around for the last 5 years.
Yeah. And they were the thirds, they were the leaders, they were the best, they were the most innovative, and that was 10 years ago, and then they completely stopped. They stopped everything, basically.
Yeah.
Like, so I really don't know what to think about them. Like, are they successful? Are they not successful? Like, I don't know if it's a good company. I really don't know what to think about them.
I don't know. And when was the last time you were in a Tesla?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in my entire life, I've been into way more BYDs, and anything that has impressed me way more than the Teslas. Like,
I don't remember ever being in a Tesla, actually. But I've been in a bunch of BYDs. And also, we did a segment today on BYD on Asia Tech Podcast, on ATP Insights, right?
Yeah.
And even though the numbers are nominally small, the trajectory, as we like to say, the directionality in Singapore, I think tells the story. And that is, they've overtaken Toyota as the biggest car seller, not just of electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, but just the largest seller of cars in Singapore. And I think it's indicative. Look, you and I talk about this all the time. When I walk around in Bangkok, I see BYDs everywhere.
Everywhere. But
Yeah,
also
and I
like
see
when you go
fewer
in,
and fewer Teslas everywhere. Fewer new ones for sure.
also like when you go into a BYD, that's impressive. Like you have the same feeling that you had in a Tesla 10 years ago, right? Like it's new, it's different, it's cool, and all of that, right? They really they have the mojo right now. They have the momentum, and Tesla was first, and then they stopped entirely innovating, creating new things, creating excitement.
What's the
They
new car?
completely
What's the new
stopped.
car that they've come out with? Like the S has been out there for a while. The
The
Series 3.
Cybertruck, Michael. The Cybertruck.
Yeah, but that's even the Cybertruck. Most of those Cybertrucks have been bought by the U.S. government or.
And did they deliver them? Like, if there's some Cybertruck on the road for like the public, can we buy a Cybertruck? I'm not even sure.
Have you ever seen one in Thailand?
In all the countries we have ever been, I've never seen one. Never.
But when we were in Miami, we didn't see one. You've been in
No,
France
no.
a bunch of times. I've been in
Never.
Japan, Singapore.
Never.
I've never seen a Cybertruck in person. Never.
Because also like in any videos that we see online on social media, everything, we never see a Cybertruck. Like it's not like we see Lamborghinis, you see Ferraris, you see Toyota plenty. Like that's the number one car seller in the world. But Toyota, they're the largest, right?
I see Hyundais everywhere.
Hyundai is everywhere, but like you never ever see a Cybertruck. so that's why I really wonder like if they actually sell them to the public. So that's why I really wonder like what to think about Tesla, which makes me wonder like what to think about Elon Musk, because at the end of the day, does he have a profitable business as of now? Like is there like a good business that's profitable that is going to
Tesla's profitable, no?
Yes, but I mean, like, is it a good company? Are they going to keep being number one for
I don't
forever?
think so. I think there's a lot of fluff. And the real question is when we allow BYDs to be sold in the United States, right? Because otherwise it's a protected market. And
Exactly.
that may be valid for like the next couple of years, but I don't see like 5 to 7 years out or 6 to 7 years out that there are not going to be any other electric vehicles being sold from China in the United States, since they make the best and they have the best value for money as well.
Yes. Yep.
I just don't see it happening. Let's go to our last tweet on this topic, Martin, because we've been on this topic for almost an hour now.
Yes. Okay. The one from Rohan, right?
Yeah, from Rohan Paul.
Yeah, let's do it.
So again, another little, just slightly different piece of information here. Elon Musk committed SpaceX is expanding AI data centers exclusively to Nvidia Vera Rubin. So this is a little bit different, right? Because we initially talked about this just being for the stuff in space. But it seems like Rohan believes that this is going to be for all of their data centers. And SpaceX plans nearly 10 gigawatts of AI capacity by the end of 2027. I think this fits into the category of that's just aspirational. Don't you? Because it'll be 5 times more capacity than they have right now. Maybe 4.7. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just way more capacity than they have right now. And that doesn't include anything that's going to be in space, because we've already figured out that the stuff that's going to be in space is not going to be launched. It's going to be tested in 2027 and maybe launched for commercial reasons in 2028.
Yes. And
so how do they get to 10 gigawatts when just the combination of the two Colossuses is only around 2, no?
So yes. So they built Colossus in 122 days. 122. So that's 4 months. So we'll see next year. Let's see if they announced, if they manage to build 20 Colossus, even more than that, right? Like the one is fully rented by Anthropic, and that's 300. So to get to 10,000 megawatts, 10 gigawatts.
10 gigawatts.
You would need 30 Colossus. So they need to build 30.
28 more. You need to build 28 more because they've got Colossus 1 and Colossus 2, right?
They have to already. So that's 28 more in a country, the US, where it's almost impossible.
There's massive backlash against it. Exactly. For whether it's right or wrong, right? And again, I don't know where I fall in this because I don't live in the United States, but like,
that's a fact.
It's just a fact that there's a massive backlash against these data centers.
So are they going to put them into other countries, right? Like that's a big possibility. Thailand approved a $46 billion investment, right? Like for AI infrastructure.
Can I ask you this? If you have a data center in, let's just say Thailand, right? Because that's definitely a possibility. but it's being used by companies in the United States.
Mhm.
Is there any sort of latency associated with that, or any sort of risk associated with that, or no?
As of now, I don't think so.
So
I
nothing
think
that's material enough to make a difference.
no. I think the web has taught us how to handle this question very nicely. We know how to do. We know how to deal with that. I don't say that's simple. I just say we know how to do
No.
it. Yeah, I just say we know how to do it. I don't see any problem at hosting your data somewhere else. Maybe some companies are going to be like, I don't know if I want to put my data in Thailand at first, but then when they will see that first they have no choice, and second they have done like all the required thing to make them okay. Like like for example, like they created this label, right? Like this ISO something, like
Yeah.
all of these norms that they use in the West and that they use for the data centers. They just need to expand that to all the data centers that they build outside of the US,
Right.
and then that's fine, right? Like they just say, look, we have the same certification, we have the same security, we have the same everything, and your data doesn't go out of the data center, so that doesn't really matter where it is. And then the latency and all of that, I don't think this is a problem at all. So I think we're good.
So Martin, we were very ambitious today.
Okay. For our 4 topics. And plus we have Helix Michael, who tell us in the chat the real secret is AI researcher. So Elite, if you can tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that and in what sense, just to make sure that we get like your idea in
what
full.
does Helix mean?
Yes, but if that's the way that I would understand it, which is AI researcher for the model that they are developing, so SpaceX with Grok, with Cursor, with all of that, that's true. That at the end of the day, that maybe the only value that a model will still hold, right? Like if tomorrow the models become a commodity, what's gonna happen to the AI researcher and the value that we need from them? Because we still need them to build the model, but if the model is a commodity, then how does that work, right? Like I really don't know like how this is going to play out. And SpaceX, through the acquisition of Cursor and the build out of Grok and all of that, definitely has a team there who can do these things.
Yeah. I worry about these big frontier lab companies.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I do. I want to be aspirationally happy for them. I want to feel like excuse me, like OpenAI is going to be around forever, and do you know what I mean? But you even see, and again, we didn't get a chance to talk about this today, but like the whole senior management team, or a bunch of the senior management team from Google's DeepMind, just made this decision of like, we're so close to AGI, we just want to go out and do this on our own. And Google agreed to actually fund some of it as well.
Makes sense.
They're rolling it out a way. They're in a way they're rolling it out a little bit, right?
Yep. Yes.
But I wonder, just based on their cost basis, how these companies are going to survive if things move directionally the way you and I expect them to, or at least the way we've discussed we expect them to over time. And you're right. What's going to happen to these gigantic companies? I mean, we don't really have the time to go into this in detail, and it was kind of off the plan for today. But like,
you mean the massive plan that we did, and we just did like 10% of the plan, and we have no more time.
25% of the plan. Maybe we exaggerated in Elon Musk style about all this stuff we're going to talk about today.
Exactly. But maybe, Michael, we still have 10 minutes before our first guest join, and this is a really, really great guest. Maybe we can just go very, very quickly about all the news that we wanted to talk about, so at least the audience has the information. And then if you have any question, we will try at our best to actually answer them. But maybe let's just go through them so people have the information that's actually big news.
Okay, so Anthropic announces hiring of a chip design team. What do we think about this?
You want to go head first?
Sure.
Very quickly, you have 2 minutes, Michael.
So the point I want to make here is I don't think this is an outlier. I think this is the natural progression of what's happening across the board. And we said that OpenAI wants to do this. Google already produces their own TPUs. Apple has already decided that they're going to make their next set of chips available to run. We know that obviously Nvidia is trying to do full stack stuff. So while they're already in the chip business, now they're trying to get into the AI business as well. We also know that, SpaceX is interested in building their own chips. I think what's happening here is people are trying to determine whether they can be like, and I want to put this in quotes, like the Apple of artificial intelligence, in the sense that Apple has always thought that running a vertically integrated business where they run the hardware and the software together. And Steve Jobs used to quote this guy, I can never remember his name. He said, if you're really, for companies that are really serious about building their own software, they have to build their own hardware. And this software hardware integration means the stuff that if Anthropic believes that their models can run more efficiently on chips that are built specifically just to handle their own compute needs and that are different and differentiated from somebody else's, whether it's OpenAI or DeepSeek or whomever, then it's just the natural progression that they're going to get into the chip business. Are they going to be successful at this? Do they have the chops to do this? Can they compete with Cerebras and other companies that have always had, that have always been in the chip business, that are spending years developing expertise? That's a question, for not for another time, but that's the question I don't think we can answer today. But the bottom line is that I don't see this as like an outlier position.
No,
it makes perfect sense to me. What do you think?
No, completely agree. Completely agree. OpenAI is doing the same thing, right? Like they launched, I think, already their jalapeno chips that they do in partnership with Broadcom.
Right,
So I
but that's
think
in partnership. That's in partnership
yes,
with them, right?
so
Yeah,
that's
that's
so
slightly different.
so that's why I wanted to say that. I think like the idea to make a chip on which your software, your AI in this case, is going to run better, be more efficient, and be faster. I think there is no doubt that's a good idea. That's the Apple model. That works. That's great. Then what I'm really curious about is like why they are hiring a team to build it internally, where they could have done a deal with Broadcom, with Cerebras, with somebody else, to actually do them in partnership, just like OpenAI did.
So I think the real issue there is the same issue that Apple has. Apple went out and bought an ARM chip design company. They brought the entire thing in-house. They licensed the design stuff from ARM, but they build their own proprietary chips and they don't sell them to anybody else either.
Yes.
And I think the problem is that if Anthropic's design chips with, let's just say, Broadcom, that there's no way they can prevent them from selling them to other people. Because if the yield on the chips is high and Anthropic either can't afford to or doesn't need the capacity to buy them all, well, then what's their partner going to do with those chips? Whereas if they do it internally, it's just for them. They can then plan just to build enough chips just for that. It's just weird that, like, I don't know how they could do it exclusively. And if you look at other chip makers like Intel, even if they sold a bucket load of chips to Apple, they were just like, look, these chips we have to be able to sell them to other people. There was never an exclusive agreement with them, ever.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard even if you do it in partnership with some other company. But if you do it all in-house and then license, you just call TSMC and say, you manufacture this for us. Well, then it's just your stuff and they don't have the right to sell it to anybody else.
Makes ton of sense. So yeah, so that's one thing to look at in the coming months. We need to see like how this is going to play out, if it's going to work as well. But at the end of the day, the goal is to make the inference on cloud cheaper and faster. So at the end of the day, they want to be more efficient. They want to be able to sell their tokens at a cheaper price. They want to increase their margin, but they definitely have a pricing problem. So they want to reduce their cost, which at the end of the day is good for us clients. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Let's go to our next story, Michael. We did 3 minutes.
So next one is DeepMind's AI leadership leaves to build their own company. So what is this guy's name?
Denis Hassabis?
No, Denis Hassabis actually said, I don't want to be in charge of DeepMind anymore. I want to be the chairman of the company. I still want to be around to be like an advisor, but I don't want to run on the operational side anymore. I want to be involved in some other things. But the guy that left, let me get his name.
It's hard to say. Cavusoglu?
Actually, I have his name here.
No, he also moves. He also moved from inside. He moved outside of the CTO of DeepMind to now oversee Gemini model development.
So Jeff Dean is the guy who's leaving Google after 27 years to create a company called Discovery Loop. Sanjay Gemawat is leaving with him, Kwak Lee, and Oriol Vinyals. All these sounds like stage names to me. guys that act in movies. And the company has been formed as a public benefit corporation will focus on automating scientific and engineering research. Dean is expected to serve as the CEO. And here's the thing. Alphabet, which again is like Meta, like it's hard to call the company Alphabet. First of all, silly name, but second of all, doesn't invoke anything to me. Is not making a complete break. We talked about this earlier with the departing team. They are investing in Discovery Loop. They're providing Google Cloud infrastructure and planning a continuing research collaboration around machine learning systems. The startup has also received backing from Radical Ventures and Khosla Ventures. And while the amount that was raised and its valuation has not been disclosed, I'm going to say they probably raised over $1 billion at some multi-billion-dollar valuation.
Yeah, very likely. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is the reason why these guys would leave, like Jeff Dean was at Google for 27 years. And if he was that important and that senior, he must have made, what's the official word? A ton of money. I think that's the official term for it. And because they've made a ton of money, they want to work on something where they're really passionate about it. But maybe when they're working inside of a big organization like Google, and I'm sorry to be talking so fast, but I only have 4 minutes left. They wanted to do it in a way where they weren't constrained by other time constraints, where they didn't have other responsibilities internally. And a guy like Jeff Dean, who was very senior inside of the DeepMind business, probably had to do other meetings and other stuff that like was just getting in the way of him making progress. And I think this whole team feels like, at least according to the announcements that I've read, that they feel like they're getting closer and closer to AGI. Now they have way more information than I do, and they're scientists, and I'm just a guy with a microphone. But I do think that at some level, because they are enthusiasts, that they're underestimating just how difficult it's going to be to get to something like AGI.
Yep.
I really do. That's just my opinion. It's an informed opinion, but it's not a final opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And because of that, so that's how I feel about that, Martin. We have 4 minutes left. What do you think? Because I also want to talk about Meta, because I think that that's important too, because I think that they're doing something interesting, but that's not that differentiated. Sorry, go ahead.
So I think, Michael, I will keep my opinions for myself. Just Chithra just joined. I will welcome her on the podcast. and so
Oh my god.
I will not make her wait. You know, I'm French, so I get to be a gentleman. That's important. So I'm not.
But you have to be French. You have to be late as well. Like, what do you mean?
No. We get to be on time. So if you want to continue on this and also give information about Meta, I would leave you to it, and I will see you everyone on Monday. Thank you very much for joining. Sorry for the speed on the other news, but but I think the SpaceX and Nvidia deal was really, really important. And if you have any question, put them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, I'm going to do a little bit on Meta, yeah. Martin, but as soon as you have as soon as you have Chithra ready to go, just give me some kind of notification. I'll be watching the screens as well, so the sooner we can get her in, the better. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So the last topic we wanted to cover today was Meta enters the agentic AI coding race. So we know that Meta is out there building their own foundational models. They've come out with, what is it, Muse, Spark, and apparently to sort of decently good reviews. But one of the missing pieces was code. They didn't have an agentic code thing, and now Meta has launched something called Muse Code. It's a terminal-based AI coding agent for both Mac OS and for Linux, which is interesting. But I mean, Linux is the stuff that runs most of the backend servers in the world, so that's not a big surprise. It is currently in beta, so it's not a fully formed thing. But it's interesting that they're just going whole hog. They're all in to this AI business. They're all in. The product is designed for complete engineering tasks across large repositories. It can plan a change, write the code, and validate the result, which means it can do code checking as well. It can do a little bit of Q&A. And the important part is the system around the model. Muse Code contains background agents throughout a session, which means that it can continue to pay attention to what you do. These agents continue gathering information and carrying out work without being recreated for every new step. And this is good, right? Because it continues to keep the context there, which is always going to be really important. Dropping context for agentic AI is going to be a big problem, particularly when it comes to coding. So that's actually important. Larger jobs, And most of the stuff that these coding agents, these agentic coding are going to do are going to be larger jobs, can be divided across isolated work trees, allowing several changes to be developed in parallel without altering the developer's main working copy. And that's actually pretty interesting, right? Because it means that it's like having 4 or 5 different guys or gals actually working on the same thing, checking this stuff in, checking it out, and then being able to sort of interact with it whenever they want. And Muse Code, finally, we're going to get to Chithra in a second. But Muse Code, just one more thing, also keeps a local append-only record of every model request, every tool action, and this lets an interrupted task resume from the same point after a crash, which is actually really interesting stuff. And Meta has added approval and planning controls through built-in commands that structure how the agent approaches longer assignments. Okay, we didn't have a ton of time to cover all those topics, but we want to get to them as much as we could. Martin, let us bring in our first guest today. That was very fast. How are you doing? I am super duper. Where are you based? Are you in San Francisco? Very nice. Okay. Well, look, it's great to have you here. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. There's a lot going on at Obsidian. We wanted to talk to you about a bunch of different things. And before we do that, can you tell our audience a little bit about the important work that Obsidian Security does, just so we can then lead into stuff in more detail?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So think about all the cyber investments that have gone in back in the decades, right? So
Yep.
it's always been around identity. How is Chithra at obsidiansecurity.com? How is she accessing applications, right?
Yep.
So that's how your MFA, your SSO, your zero trust, all that was born. And we did a good job investing in them, right? But what happens after you log in? How is the data movement happening between different applications? Who's monitoring that?
Yeah.
And all this is happening through API connections. And if I look at our own instance in Salesforce, there's like multiple applications that are connected to it. And that's how the work has evolved, right? It's always been through the cloud applications
Right.
that are an open internet. So these API access between applications, that's what Obsidian stands for. That's where our protection is the most relevant. And now what amplified this whole equation is the attackers, we have noticed that is going after that vulnerability because those API connections are we still need monitoring there.
Yep.
On real time. We still need security that needs to be kind of like placed in between those applications because that's where the data movement happens.
Right.
But now AI in this equation amplified that risk because the agents that are being built are also using the same API connections and token exchanges to be able to move within the applications. So our own architecture was able to kind of be extended towards because we were already protecting non-human identities. We just extended our architecture to also support agentic security. So that's
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, that's just in a nutshell on what we do.
No, and very interesting stuff. And look, one of the things we've talked about recently is just the increased surface area where the potential hackers and attackers could get in because of the increase of the use of APIs, not just from an external perspective, but from an internal perspective as well. How has this complication affected the work that Obsidian has been doing?
Yeah, so just as an example, right?
Yep.
And I'm not obviously naming any companies, but some of the vulnerabilities we have seen, whether if you're doing POVs with other prospects, right?
Yep.
And these could be like Fortune 500 companies as well. They would have agents created, but are already over provisioned and are publicly available. So these are easily accessible. So one such agent was able to access the HRIS data directly.
Yep.
And send emails back to their Gmail or personal. They could do whatever. It could also go and change anybody's salary, right? So the user may not have had the access or the provisioning to be able to go do these things, but
Right.
agents, however, when they created, had to be over provisioned because if your agent doesn't have all the accesses, it's impossible to get the ROI from that agent. So people, when they create the agent, they actually have to give it all the access for third-party application. So this is actually a real-life example, right? So these things Obsidian was able to uncover. And we were initially also, when all the agentic hype and hike started, like we were also like figuring out how to kind of go about the situation. But I think our best advantage is that we have the largest logos in the world who we work with pretty closely to
Right.
build this product. And we are kind of in the forefront of this problem statement, and we see a lot that is happening behind the scenes.
Mm.
And this is happening to huge volumes of data. So we needed an infrastructure
Right.
that is able to support that, able to real time figure out like what are the different attack surfaces that are shifting
Yep.
and potentially could happen. So we really had to kind of build our vision around this, and I think we have succeeded, and it really shows up in our metrics pretty much. And we're really proud of what we have built as a company.
Can I talk about this over permissioning, excuse me, a little bit more, if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me that we think that these agents have to be over permissioned, otherwise they cannot reach their sort of expected ROI, right? But
Mhm.
at some level, at least in my mind, I think about an agent who's acting on my behalf or on your behalf, let's say,
Mhm.
or a series of agents that are acting on our behalf as kind of like junior employees, right? They come in, they get trained to do something. They don't know everything when they first arrive. I don't want to say an intern. I used to say that before, but like these
Mhm.
agents are actually much more effective than what an intern would be. And yet a normal new employee, even in the first or second year they're there, almost never gets over permissioned. I'm thinking about my time like at Goldman Sachs. It took me a while to build up enough trust internally to be able to get
Mhm.
access to all the things that I needed access to. Why is it necessary, again, for people that may not understand why, to over permission an agent, particularly in places where, as you said, these huge logos, these big companies have a lot of sort of sensitive data that in some cases is, whether it's siloed or not, is separated out for like, you don't need to see this or only for a need to know basis. Why are these agents being over permissioned, at least at the beginning? And what other kinds of problems does it cause and how is it fixed?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
So I wouldn't say that these things are happening because, okay, let me give it all the over provisioning that is required.
Yeah.
Some of the times you don't even know, right?
Ah,
How to position this. So
right.
there could be instances where, because think about all the agents, right? It could be agents that you create with your own access and whatever.
Yep.
It could be agents that are created outside. It could be through your MCP. It could also be that your SaaS application in itself has agentic capabilities.
Yep.
So this could be like different kinds of agents and whatever in its sense that you want to call an agent. So the vulnerability stands where you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
If and another simple example I can think of is when you think about a user who has a certain kind of configuration within an application, whether
Mhm.
it's speed, right, or maybe this person cannot change or edit anything in that particular instance. There could also be an agent that this person created or is probably creating to do a certain work, which also should behave in a certain way. And instances we have seen that that's not the case. This person also can read, write, and delete a certain data, right? So this is the importance in understanding both sides of the equation. So a lot of agentic companies or governance companies, what they see is one side of the coin, which is okay, well, how is your agent behaving?
Right.
What is this agent doing? But what we are able to do, just because we have that in depth knowledge in the third party application layer, we are able to say that were they supposed to do that in the first place? Were they actually provisioned to do that? Like
Yeah.
if you create an agent and gave it a task, did it do the task it was supposed to do with the right access, right? So I think it's important to know both the sides of the equation. And a good example also is most of the time when you're kind of like working on the agentic layer, you have data sitting in your warehouse,
Mhm.
right? And if it's not kind of compartmentalized in the right way, a lot of people can download like entire history of customer data and put it again into a LLM model and do whatever they want with it, right?
Yeah.
So the question goes back to how are things positioned in the company? Like, do you have the level of sophistication that you need to be able to see and foresee some of these things? Most of the time, the answer is no.
I was going to
Like, not
say,
everybody has that kind of mature cyber teams or mature IT organization to be able to keep up with how fast agentic era is kind of like expanding, right?
right.
So, in the meantime, how do you know things are vulnerable? How do you know if in the background your data is protected? I think this is where you need to maybe take a step aside and think of the larger picture.
Yeah. And again, like whether this goes all the way up to the CISO or not is another question altogether.
Mhm. Definitely not. Definitely not. I still remember when we were having some of the conversations, we were kind of still exploring. Okay, we're hearing this from some of our customers, and believe it or not, I like I think at that time we were not seeing that many agents being deployed in even our instance from a customer standpoint, right? Yeah, I think it was around March that everything just became different, and the extent at which it exploded, I think that was very surprising. And one fine day, everybody is just talking about it, right?
So,
So I
right.
think
I was going to say, like, it was, if I looked at a chart of it, I hope you can see my hand clearly, but it feels like it was going like this. Maybe it blipped up a little bit and then it kind of hockey sticked up much higher. And I feel
definitely,
like, and again, without mentioning names of companies, do you feel like the companies themselves put the right guardrails in place, at least initially, to be able to deal with the explosion of the use of agentic AI inside of their own companies? And the flip side of that is, were they ready for the potential security problems that resulted from that in a way that never resulted at the same level before because the surface increase level was so much higher than it had ever been previously?
I don't think anyone was ready.
Okay.
I don't think, I'm just being blunt here, right?
No, it's
Like I
fine. Please be blunt.
I think what happened is there was a lot of pressure to adopt AI, whether it's for productivity, whether it's for speed, whether it's just, I don't want to
Mm,
miss out on things, whatever that case may be.
right.
Security is always an aftermath. And this has been 90% true with anybody I've spoken with, or
Interesting.
at least being in cybersecurity and speaking with peers, like this is what we've witnessed. So I feel like the infrastructure and security landscape and the industry in itself has been trying to catch up with the amount of innovation and amount of change that has been happening.
Right.
And I still feel some of that is true. We may have figured out some of the equation, some of the pieces, some of the dots may have been filled, but we still have a big huge gap where we're still learning. And I think this is a responsibility back to the industry as well, that we need collective knowledge. We need to actually help each other to be able to kind of protect what is ahead of us. And that happens with more thought leadership, that happens with more understanding of where am I standing today?
Yeah.
What does my landscape look like? Am I able to see all the third party applications that are out there? Now, one interesting thing that happened out of all of this is that the biggest vulnerability we see is from your tier three applications.
What does that
That
mean?
that means your and a great example is Clue. Clue is probably not that big of a company, but it was still an integration to Salesforce.
Wow.
Through that application, because it was the vulnerabilities that they had, they were still able to get into Salesforce and get into customer data that was sitting in a different application, which is a
Mm,
tier one application.
right. I got it.
So just because you protect your tier one applications, I don't think it's enough anymore.
No.
Mythos like models out there will find vulnerabilities in your every single applications that you have, whether you have MFA, you have SSO, whatever that may be. If that third party application does not have an inherent cyber or like a proper vendor responsibility of taking care of in their own application and their own infrastructure, these things are very prone to attack. So how are you today taking responsibility for all the applications that you have? Are you asking the question to yourself that are they protected? Are they connected to critical applications,
Mm.
and is your data safe?
So can we go back a little bit? We talked about how like we've been out there with agentic AI at scale for like the last 5 months, and that we both agree, I think, that there was a lot of pressure, whether it's from the board or from the
Yeah.
C-suite, to just do something in AI. So it's just something that I hear all the time when I talk to people, both in the security part of the businesses, but also just in the business part of the business, where they're like, there's a ton of pressure on me, not just from my management, but from that management down from the CEO and from the board level. But now that we've been at this for, it feels like a lifetime, but really it's only like 5 months. Are
Yeah.
people, do you think, I know it's weird, right? But it feels like, is the pace, I don't want to say slowing down, but is it becoming more measured in the sense of like, now that we are implementing things in the AI space, and we're implementing agentic AI, that people are now understanding what some of the vulnerabilities are, and they're taking a step back and thinking, we still want to do everything we expected to do in the agentic AI space, but now we need to be a little bit more concerned about what the security implications are of what we're doing. So maybe we need to rethink this. And as you said, work together with companies like Obsidian, but just internally to learn about how we should better manage the security risks that we're introducing that we didn't understand were there in the first place.
Absolutely. I think that mind shift has we're definitely slowly seeing. But the main thing here is that the way innovation has been happening, we have never seen this fast pace of an innovation
never.
in the industry as a mankind. So we don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 months,
No,
4
we have
months.
no idea. No, exactly.
So whatever measures you're taking today, is that enough?
Yeah.
We don't know, right? So I think the main question here is have to accept the fact that AI is in our life, whether it's for the good or the bad. There is some acceptance that needs to happen. Now, do you have enough cushion? That's another question, right? So how do you embrace change, not from a point of fear, but from the point of like accepting innovation, accepting that the fact that technology is moving ahead, and you have to be part of it. So I think kind of going from that direction, let's make sure that you have everything you need to be able to be ahead of the innovation and not hold on to productivity or feel like you're missing out, but do it safely, securely. And I think it comes from gathering knowledge. And this is why the network effect that we have as a company is extremely important, because we have the largest customers out there from every vertical that we can think of,
Right.
doing that thought leadership and protecting their environment for that big change that's ahead of them. So having a community is extremely important at this point, is what I feel.
Yeah, it feels like building the proper ecosystem around yourself and your company is actually going to be really important. Can we talk about, what day is today? August 6th. So 2 days ago, if my math is right, Obsidian announced a capital raise, a Series D raise. So congratulations for that. $85 million, not a small amount of money, at a pretty decent valuation as well. Can you talk a little bit about why now, what the significance of this is, like what this buys us, and like what kind of discipline now becomes necessary to actually manage having much more money, much more capital to invest in the business and invest with your clients and business partners?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's a very, very humbling and at the same time very exciting moment for us.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge testimony and validation to where we are headed, whether it's from our customers, whether it's from the industry, our investors. There is a big shift that will happen. I think we are kind of just in the verge of how we are going to think about vulnerabilities very differently, unlike how we have thought about it before. And we feel we are ready as a product. And I tell my team all the time, like, I'm personally excited because we are in the right time, in the right industry, with the right product, like ready to go. We feel that we are already seeing the shift happen slowly, and we feel very well positioned. And what this means from an investment standpoint as a company is our ability to go even further in depth. And few of the things that we can think about is like the Claude co-work and code, and our in-depth coverage on Microsoft Copilot. are some of the areas we really want to explore much deeper, because like I said, we have the architecture, we have the infrastructure. Now it's about understanding the intricacies that comes with it, which helps us become a best vendor to be able to protect our customers' environment.
Mm.
And the
Go ahead.
other innovations would be around like MCPs, but I think there is a lot more to do, and we are just getting started.
Yeah, and look, when the company was founded, if I'm right, it was back in 2017, the landscape for security was just completely different than it was today. We could not, at least I could not have anticipated, even based on all the tech cycles that I've already seen, that agentic AI was going to come and change the way we think about security. How intense have the last 2 years been? Well, we just want to round it around to 2 years, right? Because the agentic, like we said, started at the beginning of this year, but maybe there was sort of fluctuations around it in the previous year. But how intense have the last couple of years been in thinking, okay, we should be prepared for a much larger and deeper and more vulnerable surface, and we're going to have to do things a little bit differently here to make sure that we can actually provide the protection that's necessary for all of our existing clients. And we're going to have to work closer together with them and actually develop things even faster, which is probably what this money's for. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think so. A couple of actually maybe 3 years back, right?
Yep.
One important pivot that we saw that was happening in the industry, because we are also IR partners to some of the largest names out there,
Right.
And we see a lot of threat and incidents, and we are part of solving them. So one of the things we noticed was that third-party applications were getting breached left and right.
For sure. Sorry,
And
go ahead.
this was increasing at a very high pace, is what we had already seen happening, because hackers or bad actors, they were no longer interested in going to the identity to attack and infiltrate. They were actually excited to look at vulnerabilities between these SaaS applications to get in, to get to the the sensitive data. So this was actually a pattern that we were already like preparing for. Now, the craziness happened obviously earlier this year when you just poured agents into an already vulnerable environment. So it just like literally like 100x the situation. So that for us was something I feel like nobody was prepared to see that kind of a shift happen. So these are kind of probably the two aha moments that kind of came about in the last three to 4 years.
How has the emergence of these international crime syndicates that, unfortunately, some of which are based like really close to where I live, impacted the way that teams like yours or companies like yours look at the way security has to get done, because of how well funded they are, and also because of just the massive amount of compute that they can now, because having agentic AI is great, but you have to have a certain amount of compute to be able to actually use it in a way that's effective. But if they can earn billions of dollars, right, creating or taking advantage of a few vulnerabilities, or even hundreds of millions of dollars, that means they can create an infrastructure themselves that's very sophisticated. How has that changed the way you all look at stuff as well?
Very good point. Very good point. So I think when we were thinking, or when we were seeing that third-party applications like the breach were going up, there was already a perspective that there is sophistication that is happening, and there is being organizations being funded specifically for this. Now with Agentic era, what has changed or shifted is that there is even like phishing, or even I mean, lower level of breaches that are a lot more faster to do.
Yeah, much faster for sure. Sorry.
After having agentic capabilities,
Right.
like whatever they did, they can now do that in a fraction of time, a fraction of expense. This just like opens up a whole new plethora of like vulnerabilities and kind of like the expansion of the attack surface per se within the industry in itself, right? Now, being able to use like models, the biggest hurdle right now, and we were just discussing this at the team meeting the other day, like biggest hurdle is cost probably. Right now, maybe there's a token cost that is much higher that not maybe everybody wants to go explore, but there are models being created that are 1/10 of the cost these days.
1/100th of the cost. I mean, you look at some of these open weight models that are coming out of China, some of them are super cheap to use, right?
Exactly. So imagine that being in a hand of a bad actor, and they have mythos-like capabilities.
Right.
What does that world even look like, right? And do we feel prepared to be able to protect ourselves from some of those things, some of those innovations that might even happen on their side, right? So I think we have to be cautious about the possibilities, and are we prepared today to be able to face that is a question we need to ask. And is there a right answer? I don't know yet, right? I think there will be probably multiple vendors that are required in the cyberspace to be able to keep you safe from some of these newer generation of attacks that we yet haven't witnessed.
I want to ask you one more thing and then I'll let you go. I mean, frankly, I'd like to keep you here longer, but I don't want to take up more of your time. You must be insanely busy. But do we see a future where some of these international bad actors, some of these international crime syndicates even get together, but even separately? Here's the thing. It appears to me now that the creation of an LLM is just becoming easier and easier. Now that we understand the methodology and the science and the math behind it, it's just becoming easier for people to do. And that when we move, and just bear with me on this for a second, when we move away from models that are 3 to 5 trillion parameters, whether they're MOE models or not, right, mixture of expert models or not.
Yeah.
And we've seen, I can't remember the name of the one that came out a couple of days ago, but it was much smaller, much more effective, and very targeted toward a specific thing. I think it was just towards coding. Do we see a point where some of these international bad actors will create a model that's meant just to permeate vulnerabilities and no longer have to run on a massive compute platform, but can run, let's say, on a mobile device, and that they develop their own LLMs that are specifically designed just to create or take advantage of breaches and vulnerabilities, and that just makes the role of security much harder?
How do we know it hasn't happened already,
I
right?
don't know that. That's why I'm asking you. You're better positioned to understand that. I don't see all the same things you see. That's why I'm asking.
So we definitely know that wars are definitely going to be different,
Yeah.
right? I think there is going to be even a tech war, if you may. And we do see around the time of the war that we did make sure that our customers were given extra precaution, and we were extra careful on even our end to be able to look at different real time different activities or shift in certain activities.
Right.
So we have done our part, but what we don't know is if obviously we wouldn't have all the information to be able to confidently say that okay, this is happening. But whatever it may be, are we today well equipped to face that is the question we constantly ask ourselves. We have to be futuristic in our thinking. We can never eliminate a possibility.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have to be prepared for the worst, and I think we are all still figuring out what the worst potentially what it could be, the magnitude of it. But I think we have to be prepared. But yeah, I mean, I think if there is a possibility that is already happening, and I think it's a great question to ask all of us internally, right?
Yeah.
Like, are we prepared?
Great answer. Okay, I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate your time today, Chithra. It was great to meet you and great to have you on. We'd love to have your team back on the show whenever you want to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the time. And this was a great conversation. And we
Thank
didn't
you.
talk about finance at all. So that was
we'll get to that too. We went over time a little bit. I could have kept going, but I've got another guest waiting, and otherwise I would have kept you longer. So thank you.
No,
very much.
it was definitely one of a kind.
Okay.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care. Okay, Martin, let's bring in Ethan as well. Ethan, hello. Man, can you hear me okay? Ethan, are you there? I can hear you, Martin.
Now I can hear you both.
Okay, Ethan,
It
it's
does
great
feel
to
like it's
meet
coming
you.
a little bit of a delay, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of a lag. Let's see what we can get out of this. Ethan, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much, and thanks for your patience as well.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Okay, look, we wanted to talk to you about how AI-powered location intelligence is improving physical world decisions for retailers and commercial property businesses. Really interesting stuff. Why don't you, before we jump into that in detail, tell our audience a little bit about the important work that Placer.ai does.
So we are a location intelligence company. What that means, in like the very simplest terms, people vote with their feet. We show you how they vote across the United States every single day. We do that by utilizing a panel of tens of millions of mobile devices. Very critically, it's all aggregate data that has been stripped of identifiers like maze. We then utilize machine learning and AI algorithms on top to make estimations of visits to retail locations across the country. And so what that gives, a whole range of industries the ability to do is really understand what's happening in the physical world, and as a result, to optimize decision making around it.
So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. What can location intelligence actually tell us or reveal about consumer behavior that just like transactional data cannot? Do you know what I mean? So if you know that there's a store, some kind of retail place where some transaction takes place, what does, if you add the layer of like the location intelligence on top of it, what more does that tell us?
I mean, I would argue that it tells you the rest of the funnel. Like imagine, first of all, we don't have perfect transaction data, but let's assume we did. Let's assume our transaction data was wonderful. It was always accurate. It was 100% coverage.
Right.
You don't understand the funnel. You don't know the person who didn't purchase. You don't understand where the reach are. You don't understand the missed opportunities sitting around you. So if I understand, think about things of like visits to a retail location. If I know that there was 100 purchases made in one store and 100 purchases made at the competitor's location nearby, if one of those had 1,000 visitors and one of those had 500, someone's doing the retail experience much more effectively. Now add in the layer of who is actually coming to visit the store. So we see something called the true trade area, which is, not a simple radial ring, but where the visitors are actually coming from. And we can layer in psychographic, demographic data to have an understanding of the audience. And again, is it 100% perfect? No, but is it the most accurate analysis and viewpoint you can have while respecting privacy? Yes. And that means that you're giving businesses the capacity, organizations in the civic space, the ability to understand what's really happening, where the opportunities may lie. And I'll add one more piece. It's apples to apples across the industry. So the scale and representativeness is so massive that you're now able to bring that single data viewpoint across the entire landscape. And in such a way, even if you as a retailer are saying, well, I know what's happening in my stores, you probably do better than we do. But you don't know what's happening in your competitor stores, and you don't know what's happening in this other sector or this other region where you're not operating. And so to have that lens is so critical.
So how does the data sharing work, even if the data is anonymized, right? You've mentioned this already a couple of times, this idea of like, I get to understand what my competitor's landscape also looks like from a location intelligence standpoint. Is it okay? I mean, obviously it is okay. Otherwise you guys wouldn't do it. But like, why is it okay to share the location intelligence data and the other data associated with that, with the funnel, as you were talking about earlier, so that I can understand what my competitors are doing as well? Because you're right, inside my own store, and again, in a one store universe, I should know exactly what's going on there, right? If I'm any good at my business. But if the guy next door to me is selling the same or selling a similar or fungible product, how do I get to know what he's doing as well? Does Placer.ai give access to that data to other companies, even if it's anonymized, so I can then make better decisions about my own business as well?
So really critically, we are a location-oriented business. We are not a people-oriented business. And by that, we mean we're not showing you information on individuals. We are showing you information on audiences, on traffic to locations. And so as a result,
Go ahead.
there is no personal information that's coming through. And that's so critical because in the scenario we're living in, if you're providing data, but you're infringing on privacy, there is a challenge. If you're respecting privacy and ensuring that you're maintaining that perspective, then you have something that is sustainable and can be driven forward.
Sure. So what does this location intelligence data help me decide to do better than I might do otherwise? In other words, again, if I'm running a retail location and I work with you guys, what am I learning from this location data, like in more detail, so that I can then, what other kinds of decisions can I make based on that? Like, one of the interesting things you said was you don't know where people are coming from if you don't have this location intelligence. But once you do, does that mean that I can move my marketing or my sales or some other sort of outreach to a location where a lot of the people are coming from to drive them to my retail location? Is that one of the things that happens? And what else is happening as well?
I mean, let's think about this from the perspective of the life cycle of a location. So imagine for a second, you know, all right, now you and I are working together. We have a pizza place. It's doing amazingly, right? We have a sense
I love pizza. Sorry, go ahead.
Me
I'm happy.
too.
I didn't even know I had a pizza place, but now I'm happy.
Congratulations! Like I just wanted
Thank
to congratulate you on the new business venture. I think it's going to be amazing. Okay, especially since we're doing it together, because nothing says pizza like Ethan Chernofsky. But we're bringing in people.
Yeah, Ethan.
We're bringing in people to our pizza place. It's doing really well, but we understand the parameters now of how far the reach is. So now we're looking for a new location. So we're looking for a new location that has a similar demographic, psychographic mix, the right co-tenants. We set up that location. Is the traffic there? Where do we want to market to? Why are we bringing from this area but not this next area? How can we potentially bring an audience that's visiting a competitor and we see where their trade area is, and now we put up a billboard, or we do direct mail, or we optimize our digital marketing. And so over time, and as that portfolio grows, we're going to want to understand what are our best performing stores, what are our least performing stores, who are our best co-tenants, what are the best factors around us that drive success. And the more we understand what's happening, the better decisions we can make. Now we're huge, we're all over the country. We see that our visits are down 5%. Is that because the entire pizza space has taken a little dip? I don't know, it's a time of year, a seasonality, or is it because we're not doing something right? So that contextual understanding is so critical. So basically, the location intelligence is there to help you grow, ensure your success once you've grown, and then handle all of the different types of decisions that you're going to want to make over time. In fact, what we increasingly find, and this is a business that's been around only for about 7-8 years, the number of areas where this data can influence and improve decision making is almost limitless, and it's just figuring out the ways to apply it.
How has the introduction of artificial intelligence in the last, I'm just going to say 2 years, because it just feels like an easy number to use. How has that changed the way you not just build the products that you're building, but that people use those products as well, whether it's from an analysis standpoint, from an agentic standpoint, from a decision-making standpoint? How has that changed in the last couple of years?
I mean, I think it's a massive change. I think it's one that we are embracing quite significantly. There's, Placer's in deep in a process of launching its own kind of AI layer on top of the data, which expands the amount of information you can pull and allows the user to get exactly what they need. So right now, if you think you have a consumer, you have a whole layer of features and products and ways of engaging with the data. If you can just engage with the data directly via natural language, the types of answers, the types of questions you can bring to the table is so dramatically increased that there is an almost endless potential. I think that is the big thing that's happening now, is this huge unlock in who can gain value from it. So widening those who can actually access, deepening the types of questions so those who are already accessing it can gain even more value. And that is, obviously a massive change when you think about the data space.
Do you see your clients and your customers actually understanding now how agentic AI and artificial intelligence can impact the way they make decisions? And are they coming back to you guys as a team and just saying like, hey, can you help us do this too? Because they don't have the expertise themselves internally, nor the sort of production chops to be able to develop in the same way that you guys can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is there are obviously varying degrees of AI utilization, usage, understanding. We're definitely seeing that pace pick up where professionals are realizing that, hey, this isn't something that's coming from my job. This is something that is making me much better at my job, allowing to do a lot of the grunt work, the things that I didn't want to do anyway, and allow me to focus on the areas that are uniquely human, that I'm uniquely good at. And so I think that continual process is going to lead to more and more engagement in a really positive way. I think we're still at the early stages. And so the fact that we're seeing so much dramatic change is just an indication of how much more things are going to change in the near term.
Are there verticals where you're not participating, right? Like in my head, I was just thinking of like a retail store. For some reason, I have like and again, this is not your client. You didn't put this in my head. I'm not saying that you said this, but I don't know why I was just thinking of like Levi's. I don't know why. Maybe because I was at a Levi's shop a few days ago, but I was just thinking about like how useful this would be, because they have stores everywhere. They have stores all over the world. It's just like their location intelligence stuff should be pretty interesting. But there are other applications for this. Like I could think of condo developers thinking this worked in this location in San Francisco. There's a similar location in LA. Maybe we should think about obtaining property in that location. Or frankly, there's a similar location in Bangkok or in Paris. Are you seeing use cases like this as well?
Yeah, I mean, you're nailing it on the head. The only challenge is we're US only, so you will find zero information about Bangkok, but it is it is exactly that. It's the idea that what would the movement of people from a large scale tell me about the world, and therefore tell me about my business. And so it might be where people are left New York to go to Florida. Are they staying there? Do we see my normal migration patterns? Where should I invest? Do I see that,
Right.
there's an area where retail is on the uptick, there's really positive migration patterns, and there's also an increasing amount of residential development. Therefore, is this a place I want to start investing from a retail perspective, from like a landlord real estate viewpoint? I think consumer goods companies trying to understand wider behavioral trends. These are all consumers and users of the product. And what we're seeing, especially with the AI piece, more interesting questions get asked because you're no longer limited by any feature. You are now, it's just what the data might be able to tell you in a much more direct interaction way.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit off the reservation, I think, here, but tell me if I'm crazy. Is there also a way to, don't laugh at me like that. Is there also a way to use this stuff to like optimize? I was thinking like metropolitan transit as well. Do you know what I mean? So like if neighborhoods are changing their context as well, maybe more bus routes, maybe more subway routes, maybe more above level trains and stuff like that. Can this also be used in those instances? And then can it change the pricing for the subway and all these other sort of little nuanced things where we didn't really know? We thought we might have known who was using these systems before, but now, as you say, like we can have way more granular data. Again, I don't care who's doing it, but just like the context of who's doing it as well, with with all this stuff anonymized. Is that a use case as well?
So yeah, yes and no. So yes to the use case of like, could we understand transportation patterns? Could we understand where there's a need for more, where there's a need for less? How do we want to apply? Where do we need more bus routes or fewer? 100%. The area that we don't is the data's not, it's near real time, so it's a few days lag. So it's not going to be a optimized for pricing system for the subway, but it's going to tell us that, oh man, movement of people has led to a lot more demand coming into this subway station, and we might want to expand it. We might need to increase the number of trains there. So it is any of these larger macro questions of how are people in a broad scale engaging, and what can we do to improve pathways, flows of people, bring more opportunity? Yes, these are things that are getting done. And I'd say in the civic environment, so you think about governmental organizations, the impact is absolutely massive. Like, how do we show the potential? Imagine you're a large, employer, and I'm trying to battle to show that, like, hey, my city might be small, but the area I'm operating in has all the people you're looking for. Now we can bring in more jobs, therefore more retail, therefore more, et cetera, into a region. The economic development, the tourism potential here is so massive, where I think the democratization of access to data is something that is massive to discuss, because it shows that there is a way to create a tide that lifts all boats, and it just increases the economic prowess and potential of the country.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not ignoring. I'm just trying to think about like baseball stadiums. Do you know what I mean? And places where like people gather. and what I meant before when I talked about pricing, I don't mean like surge pricing or changing it in real time. That's not what I was suggesting. But this idea of like, if we see trending increase or decrease usage, is there a way to figure out the price elasticity as well over time, right? Because I can see a situation where like an airport would want to use this kind of stuff, or a bus station or things like that, where I really want to know not just who's here, but where they're coming from, again, to create better routes into my business, whether it's a retail shop, whether it's a condo building, or whether it's some other commercial use building for this location data. And to be fair, I've been thinking about the use of location data for years. I mean, as soon as I figured out that there was a GPS on the phones that we're all carrying and that our location is all being delivered to people, again, with attribution, with agreement, excuse me, that the use of that data is just a new data point that we didn't have access to, years ago, and that itself could be really powerful. Yeah.
I mean, think about, like, stadiums are such an awesome example. I'll give you one that really surprised us. It was during the Taylor Swift tour, and she went to the data didn't make sense to us. The numbers were way too high. The numbers at certain stadiums were massively outpacing the capacity of those stadiums. So we literally called colleagues, people who were like, what is going on here? And we're like, our hunch is that people are going to the stadium and tailgating a concert. They were like, that's exactly what's happening. Like, people are going and they just want to be part of the environment. So they're just being nearby and they're hanging out outside. Think about the average football game. In some cases, you can have 10,000 plus people that never make it inside the stadium, but are there for 7 hours. And think about the advertising impact. Think about the potential for food trucks and local restaurants. Think about the things you can do when you understand this information. It's really exciting. And like the sport, let's double down on the sports example for a moment. I love football. Every football stadium I've ever been to is ads for beer, trucks, and banks, right? And obviously, I'm being a little bit overly generalized, but I'm not much.
Yep.
And yet you think about how many folks are trying to target an audience that has the money to spend on a ticket to a football game, is this kind of usually male cohort within this age range, and they're not thinking about this channel as a marketing channel. The potential for brands, the potential for these sports teams, the potential for the areas surrounding them is so massive. And when you unlock kind of the code of movement, you can really take advantage of that potential.
Absolutely. Okay, Ethan. I loved your joke about like a guy named Ethan Chernofsky owning a pizza place. Sorry, if I knew you a little bit better, I'd make some way better jokes, because then you would at least understand where it was coming from. But I'm going to leave that for the next time you and I chat with each other. You were awesome. It was great to have you. Thank you for your patience at the beginning as well. We also went a little bit over again, just to try to compensate and give you a little bit more time. But
no, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
It was great to meet you.
Bye, guys.
Bye for now. Okay, Martin, let's bring in Avery. Avery, can you hear me? I can. Okay, awesome. Avery, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much. I love the enthusiasm of your team, your family, your cousins. It feels like everybody's involved. It's great to have you here. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about how blockchain infrastructure for AI agents will reshape enterprise finance and institutional markets. And before we dig into this in detail, tell our audience a little bit about the important work that Aptos Labs does.
Absolutely. So great to be here. I'm Avery, CEO, co-founder at Aptos Labs. I used to work at Meta for 10 years prior to this, where we worked on the Libra and Diem technology stack, which many of you've heard about in terms of being a global payments infrastructure 24/7 with some of the largest companies in the world, including MasterCard, Visa, and others. Today, I think the world has obviously changed with AI being one of the key focuses. And I think as we see that, a lot of the fundamental infrastructure we built plays very well in this space, but there's also a lot of things that need to be done better into the future. And so, two focuses for Aptos has been kind of even before AI has taken off this year, has been around what we call markets and machines. We believe that blockchains are the ultimate settlement engines, 24/7 settlement around the world, global, accessible, extremely fast, extremely cheap, and a much bigger upgrade than today's financial infrastructure. So with that, you can pay the lowest fees. You can get a transaction in every 25 milliseconds completed. And you can also see immense scale at world population scale. We also been building out what we call a global trading engine with Decibel. We have support for our perpetual spot coming soon, all on chain, something that's compliant with the way that CFTC and SEC have been thinking about things, as decentralized technology should have no single point of failure. They should be, in many ways, public goods. I think we're the closest to that while being able to provide the performance of centralized exchanges, which is pretty amazing on chain and globally.
Yeah.
But today we're here to talk about agents, right? And so agents, I think, take this to the next level. The agent infrastructure is early, but we see coding agents proliferating throughout the world. And in this piece, I think there's a lot of work to be done around, like, people think of coding agents as just like, they're only for coding. But the reality is when you start to build a coding agent, you learn a lot about the process of building coding agents. It's really about orchestration of agents alongside other data, memory, RAG, and other tools that are very, reinforcement learning, that are also very important for how we think about AI workflows and enterprise and consumer workflows as well. And so that's why you'll see all these frontier labs started with the coding harness, because it's actually the easiest one to use to prove out the value of itself. But that coding harness is actually the fundamental building block for all the pieces going forward, including agentic finance, commerce, payments, et cetera, et cetera.
So talk to me about why the agentic coding harness is the foundation for agentic finance as well. And I don't think it hurts. Let me give you a little bit of perspective, just so you can understand where I'm coming from. Because I think there's some connectivity here. And again, I'm not always right? I sat on a portfolio trading desk at Goldman Sachs. And at some point, we started hiring engineers, like real engineers, guys with PhDs from MIT and from Stanford and from wherever, Carnegie Mellon, right? And one of the things that they taught us, right, was that they were trying to not eliminate, but like minimize noise and find signals better than we could do, than humans themselves could do, right? And a lot of the stuff that they did was sort of agentic and artificial intelligence sort of informed, but not at the same level as it is today. But again, because we automated everything, a lot of the stuff that they built specifically for machines to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that started getting sort of embedded into all of the sort of financial interactions that we were doing. How is what's happening today changing that, or at least adding on top of that, so that the agentic AI stuff is actually more powerful than the things that we were building, because the tools that are available now are just so much more sophisticated?
I would say, those things, by the way, more like traditional machine learning techniques and data mining and all the older established fields, those are still useful, by the way. They don't go away in terms of usefulness, right?
No, they're additive, right? I mean, they're supplementary, they're complementary. Sorry, go ahead.
They're very specific for a specific use case. I think that's not going to go away, right? LLMs, multimodal, like that's more about how do we explain to humans, what machines are thinking, right? There's a great interface into people, because what large language models are doing is predicting kind of the next word in English or in other languages, and a whole host of large corpus of data that speaks, those languages going forward. So I think, it's more like a different area. It doesn't like remove the need for traditional machine learning. And I've spent my time at Facebook working on more traditional kind of machine learning techniques, clustering, collaborative filtering, gradient descent, those types of things at scale to do, predicting friends of friends or groups you might want to join. All those things are still extremely valuable. They don't go away. It's just that now there's personalized agents that can actually interact with people on a regular cadence that are extremely powerful, especially when augmented with memory and kind of reinforcement learning and other techniques. That's the change.
Yeah, so. Did I interrupt you?
No, not at all.
So how does this fit into the blockchain world as well? And again, I want to go. I always ask people that are talking to me about blockchain about this interaction that I had when I was in June in Singapore. Yatsu, obviously, yeah.
Yes.
From Animoca Brands, and we did a very long. I think I did a 40-minute conversation with him. It was amazing. He's been on the show multiple times, but he's a big believer. Like, he's a true believer. And I always introduce it this way, right? The dude's he's not a casual when it comes to blockchain at any level. But one of the things he said was that the blockchain itself and payments on blockchain and settlements, as you've suggested, were kind of waiting for agentic AI to happen because it was meant for machine-to-machine communication. Can you comment on that as well, in the sense that, like, were we waiting, whether it's for micropayments or for even larger payments? And we may not have known we were waiting for this, but Martin, we can still hear you, man. That's okay. Were we waiting for the agentic part of this so that this machine-to-machine communication could actually be more effective and more efficient? Yeah.
to head off. But
all right, I just told him.
okay, good. Your question is important though, so we'll definitely get to it once we get back control of the microphones.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. I think he figured it out. Okay, go ahead, Avery.
That's good. That's a friend, and I think the general consensus among people is like agents will probably use blockchain infrastructure more than anybody else would, and the reason mainly is because the blockchain rails are the most efficient, fastest rails, and globally accessible in terms of doing payments. I think those things are all correct. I don't think that we are waiting necessarily for it in some sense. Like that's always been true, and there's always a need for micropayments. There's always a need for scalable payments. As a Facebook, I think that was a good example where you have all these advertisers, all these users, and if you could actually transact value between them at scale, I still believe that's a great use case for that. Now that requires a business wanting to do that kind of work. So I think that's the part that's not so engaging. But in terms of the use case, it's always been there. Agents are just yet another opportunity for that, and I think given that they will be a bit more autonomous and a bit more experimental, most likely, and we've seen that in the space, like moving very quickly. I do expect we'll see a lot more of that kind of agent-to-agent interaction, whether it's going to be payments, other exchanges of value, and we'll see other kinds of value as well. Like you might just trade not even payments, you might trade positions in exchanges, you might trade other kinds of goods and services. You might trade compute, for example. You might trade tokens. Yeah, I think those are all the interesting things that might happen, given a world where agents are acting on behalf of humans to accomplish a lot of our daily tasks.
Yeah, we spent a ton of time at Super AI talking to a woman who was building something that was creating a platform for compute trading, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. Are there any roadblocks, at least in your mind and in your experience, that hinder sort of the adoption of blockchain from an institutional basis? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And maybe you can talk about some of that and what has to happen for some of those roadblocks to kind of be removed.
I think this is the right question to ask. And, I think, we saw like last administration, of course, things were heavily roadblocked. This administration, things are less roadblocked. We see Clarity coming to a vote soon. Obviously, we've had a lot of interaction with Clarity through, we had a hearing for the Agricultural Committee last July. We've been also supporting along another bunch of our peers in terms of like how we get Clarity move forward. We'll see how that does. But I think regulation has been actually one of the biggest unblocks as things have gotten faster, where the institutions are now seeing that tokenization of assets on chain can bring them tremendous amounts of value, from tokenizing equity and allowing what tokenized equity could do in terms of different kinds of dividend payments or different types of voting mechanisms, or different ways for issuers of equity to even understand who their holder base is, right? These kind of interesting concepts are now available when you think about the tokenized world. And then the payment side, I think you can obviously see we have, global remittance is a great use case. I think one of the other challenges though is that blockchain technology in a place like the US, where the financial system is actually quite evolved, quite mature, and also heavily regulated, is a tough place to operate, right? This is much more valuable in places where you don't have that type of regulation, or you don't have like mature financial markets where blockchain technology is like a big upgrade from the existing systems, a much more efficient way for them to interact with the world. So I think that's an area that we continue to be very, very excited about.
Right. So this is the thing that I was going to ask you as well. You're much closer to this in the United States than I am. But I mean, I operated in the financial services industry for 20 something years. And I like to say, like, I never had a problem with settlements. And at some point, the settlements moved from T+3 to T+1. And in some cases, instantaneous settlement. And I never had a problem with it. So to me, it always felt like blockchain from a settlement standpoint was a solution looking for a problem that again, in my world, didn't exist. But you're right, in the United States, and I was in Japan for most of my career, right? So two very sort of mature markets where the technology that was there was just very efficient and very effective. But in places where the markets are still developing, and not even markets themselves, but where the investments, the people that want to invest in those markets, whether they want to invest in the United States, in Europe, or in the rest of Asia, are not as well developed. I do see a use case for blockchain technology. Where does the RWA, the real world assets, come into play here? And how important is that, again, for the uptake from an institutional standpoint for blockchain technology, both within the mature markets like the United States, but also in the less mature markets like in, let's say, I don't know, the Sudan?
So for that, we've had great success in the U.S. with BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Apollo, who are all investors, tokenizing assets on top of Aptos. And I think overall the products do well, and I think they look at operational efficiencies, which are fantastic. What we see internationally is that it moves a bit slower. I think they're all interested. They're all watching what the U.S. is doing, and we have counterparties that are going to be a bit more aggressive than others that are engaging with us. But they're also watching to see what happens with clarity going forward, and how that affects the global markets. So I would say overall, that's something that we continue to evolve very rapidly. All the large asset issuers that we also engage with are aggressively thinking about tokenization as the next phase of finance. It's just very inevitable. But it's also experimental a little bit around how to achieve the value out of the tokenization of the assets. Right? There's lower operational costs. There's these new functionality and features, but as you said, there's also like pretty good existing market structure and financial infrastructure that exists today. So it has to be value add on top of what exists for it to see that mass adoption.
So again, that's what I was going to ask you is like, what is the benefit to an issuer of either a new security or existing securities or like a bond that they don't already get today that they can get with this new technology? Do you know what I mean? In other words, if a new company wants to go, like if SpaceX wants to go public, which they did do before, frankly, even if before they go public, they create a tokenized version of their equity. And I would suggest they do that like right from the get-go. As soon as they create a company, they create equity that's tokenized. And then when they go public, their equity already is tokenized. What's the big benefit to them for having that, besides the fact that it's like easier is the wrong word, but more accessible to trade for people in smaller dollar denominations? What are the other benefits of the tokenization?
I think it's many things that steps, right? So a lot of these assets today are represented on chain. But the outcome that they're like a digital copy of what is in the transfer agent or whatever the kind of source of truth is.
Go ahead.
But the kind of future is that once you get to the point where the equity on chain is actually the live equity, then things can become very interesting. You can turn on capital extremely quickly. You can trade at all hours of the day. The system that never goes down. I think, and also, as I mentioned, for the kind of CFOs of those companies, they can think about their holder base differently. They start to get insights about their holder base that they don't have today, around who's holding the stock, who's our investor base, like those kind of things. I think become a little bit easier. But the main thing is going to be the settlement and access to capital 24/7. I think that is the kind of finalized goal. And in the meantime, we have to take steps. We have to take steps towards this. Maybe tokenize some money market funds. Then we're going to start to have represented assets on chain. Then we're going to have some portion of those assets being kind of live in an on-chain decentralized infrastructure. And then maybe that moves more towards progressively like 50% or 90% or 100% of those assets going forward. And you get the full benefits of global markets, for any asset with interesting, investment to holder base. You get on-chain governance. You get the dividend payouts, which are different. Like all these things become very, very, very interesting. So it's a long process for sure. But the outcome, I think, is pretty amazing when you have 24/7 settlement of any market on chain in the future.
And where does stablecoins come into play here?
Stablecoins are important because they're the way that you can kind of serve as just another market. It's another market, of course, but it's a way that people think about kind of investing in these markets, bringing liquidity 24/7 as well, because you need the whole system of liquidity coming to market, buying and selling assets. You need something to exit into. Stablecoins, of course, are a perfect vehicle for that. And kind of denominated in existing fiat, which is something that people can recognize on a daily basis.
And can we go back to the agentic side of this just to kind of tie up some loose ends? How does agentic AI make this easier for people to transact in the financial system, with the premise that all of the things that you've just suggested, 24-hour access, better capital understanding, better understanding of like who you're holding, all these things we talked about? Where is it necessary to have agentic AI here to make the rest of the system more efficient or just better?
I think with AI, while we've made tremendous progress as an industry, the last year or two, especially, like the progress is like growing exponentially. the use case of AI is still just scratching the surface. We're not even using like a 1% of the power of AI of what it should be going forward to the future. And my belief is that the big part of this is because people aren't yet in a situation, like AI is not mature enough to be trusted yet, right? We're still understanding this black box. We're still understanding what data we want to share with it. I think that, and there's still a lot of tooling that's just not built to support kind of different use cases. It goes back to the coding agent, goes back to like overall agent infrastructure. And this is where blockchain can play a huge role. One thing that's important is like auditing agent interactions, understanding what my agent is doing, why did it do it, and if it's a trusted agent that I don't even trust, right? Like or inference I don't know about it, I don't trust. Making sure that we can provide almost like a contractual guarantee, and then what are blockchains great for? They're great for contracts. Essentially, I pay you, you receive the funds, you deliver value to me. That contract's on chain. That exists when we do a payment. So like having that kind of recognition when it comes to agentic payments, having a recognition when it comes to actions my agent is taking on my behalf. You need an immutable ledger, and there's no better immutable ledger than a blockchain for storing this kind of information. And I'm providing it in legal kind of disputes as well.
So this is going to get a little bit more meta, but like, does this accelerate the growth of something that's already grown quite a bit, and that is Ethereum, right?
Yeah. So I think Ethereum maybe might not be the best use case for this particular use case. Like it's just a little bit expensive. So if I want to log interaction with my agent every second or two, like, right. And imagine that massive scale of users doing that, it's going to exceed the Ethereum throughput, and the cost will be really, really high, right? I don't think users are going to pay for that much, right? Like you need a very low cost, high throughput, low latency. You don't want it to be like, if it's in a flow of agent kind of interactions, you want to be extremely fast. Like those things.
Talk about like the contracting side of this, right? Because you mentioned the contracts, and it's a great use case for that. But yeah, you're right. Ethereum itself ends up being expensive and not as fast as the rest of the other blockchains out there. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that it's I think a bullish case for smart contracts, right? Yep. Smart contracts are very important and powerful, but it's not sufficient. You also need to have a layer, an immutable ledger. Again, this is going to be put in the flow of millions or billions of agents operating very autonomously. Imagine the speed at which they work at is not human speed. They work at machine speed. Yeah. When I have my coding agent running for a day to accomplish a goal for me, it's constantly doing things. It's launching sub agents. It's doing a lot of tasks. And imagine billions of those agents working on behalf of billions of people, which is not unreasonable. Like everyone will have a couple of agents, 5, 10, 20, 30 agents working for them in terms of accomplishing their workflows and their objectives. So that world is coming very quickly. It's not there yet, obviously, but it will move quickly as we start to solve these problems around confidentiality, solve these problems around how people get paid, solve these problems around auditing, as well as permissioning, and also kind of the contractual guarantees. So all those things need to be solved. But once we get to there, I think that's when the world with AI really gets unlocked.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm going to have to let you go. We've already spent a little bit extra time than we expected, but the conversation with you and the conversation about the stuff that Aptos is doing is actually really interesting. Would love to have a more extended conversation with you on this stuff and the team. So thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I did, but I think there's a lot more we can talk about.
Absolutely. This is a lot of fun. We can talk for hours. This is my favorite topic. So,
thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Okay, bye for now. Okay, Martin, let's bring in Eliman. How are you? I am super. Can I ask how I properly pronounce your first name? I mean, it's not that hard. There's nothing tricky there, but I just think names are really important. Here's the way I look at this. So you're in the real room now, and welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming here. But I want to give you my philosophy on names, and I say this all the time. When your mom and dad gave you a name, they thought about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They were thoughtful. They didn't just be like, I don't know, put a couple of letters together. We'll figure out how to pronounce it later. So I like to respect the fact that they actually thought about it. And I always say that my name is super generic, like Michael. Do you know what I mean? Like there were 6 Michaels or 5 Michaels in my first grade class. I would say, if I just looked at your name, I would say Eliman, but I don't know if that's right or wrong.
It's perfect. And I think what you said about like your mom and dad sitting in a room conjuring up the name. My name actually comes from a combination of my mom's and dad's name. So my mom's name's Elizabeth, and my dad's name's Mansong. So it was just like the combination of the two.
I win again. I win again. Tell your mom and dad I said hi. Okay. Well, it's great. It's great. Where are you from?
From London.
London. Yeah, I can hear it in the accent. Okay. Look, it's great to have you here. We wanted to talk about how AI-powered practice infrastructure can help independent healthcare providers improve care and build more sustainable businesses. But tell us a little bit more. And again, your company name, ReClym Health. Do I have that right?
So yeah, ReClym Health.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it kind of like speaks for itself. Yeah, and I think for us, we're kind of focusing on the independence aspect of behavioral health practices. So yeah, reclaiming that healthing infrastructure for the independent practice, hence the name.
So what was necessary to solve here? Like, how are people approaching the intersection of tech and healthcare, and why is that so important today?
I would say in terms of behavioral health in particular, what you're seeing, I don't know, like historically, it's always been a supply issue. Now, on the supply side, there's two ways to look at it. How do you kind of reduce the burden, the admin burden for practitioners, clinicians, therapists, making their life easier, saving more time, saving more money to potentially do other things. So I would say a lot of founders in the space at the moment are kind of looking at specific workflows to tackle. One of the biggest ones, of course, here in the US is the insurance side of things. So how to essentially aid in documentation, billing, RCM, revenue cycle management. So the majority of companies that I'm seeing being formed in the space are kind of like tackling those workflows on the supply side. But there isn't so much work I'm seeing on the demand. Of course, demand's always there, but how do you kind of increase the quality of that demand? How do you increase or give those people access to more evidence-based care and things of that nature? So I think that's where the kind of like mismatch is, and that's the intersection that we're trying to sit in.
And so why has it been up until now that individual therapists or individual practitioners have been underserved by whatever software exists for maybe like larger institutions? Was it just the fact that, I mean, obviously it wasn't written for individual practitioners, but was it just that it was too expensive before today to be able to create the proper platform and software for these guys and gals?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you saw as a result of that, especially I'd say in the second kind of like behavioral health boom, like after COVID, was a lot of companies moving into marketplaces like the BetterHelps of the world.
Right.
Exactly. Because those type of platforms essentially gave you demand, they gave you the platform. All you had to do was essentially be an Uber driver of therapy. But which probably isn't the best model, hence why we're seeing and have seen huge lack of retention rates and a huge turnover. And I think as a result, and I think what we're seeing with AI in the second and third boom, independence is more important in terms of being able to actually control the interaction between you and the patient, control these technologies, which can kind of give you access not only to more revenue, but also, again, like increasing the chances of you actually hitting the nail on the head as far as what the issue is this patient is looking to have solved.
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple sides to this coin, right? But at what point do you think that the administrative burden itself of actually just like running your own business, if you're an individual proprietor, begin to affect the quality of behavioral health care, if you know what I mean? Right? Because again, if you're at a big institution, it's just much easier. There's a whole department that does that stuff for you. But if you're an individual or just a group of individuals in a small office, when does that burden become so big that like you just need software to be able to do that for you?
From day one, from absolutely day one,
Really?
Before the patient walks in the door. So yeah, I think at the moment we're starting to see it like a lot of companies, including ourselves, like focusing on intake. So before the actual patient walks in, you've already taken care of that onboarding through technology. So once they're in front of you, you already have an idea who they are, what they're looking for. So as opposed to having a call as far as like discovery and trying to find them out, get them to fill forms, It's more a conversation about relationship building, trying to reach that therapeutic alliance where, you're looking at alignment issues as far as communication styles, like potential treatment plans, outcomes. So we are already starting to see that shift with the administrative burden being sorted. There is more time for that interpersonal relationship building.
And how, like you mentioned in passing a little bit earlier, like about insurance, how do insured documentation requirements influence the way therapists record and deliver care? Do you know what I mean? Are there specifications for that they need to know about that are very specific so that they can actually fill out their insurance forms properly? Is that something that's tricky to do?
Absolutely, because if you have to look at it from this perspective, like each patient, depending on their like insurance profile and what type of care they're eligible to receive,
right.
The insurer needs to essentially be credentialed to be able to provide that type of care. So that's the first kind of like eligibility verification, like through the door. But once they're through the door, you're looking at note taking, scribing, subjective, objective assessment, planning notes and things of this nature to be able to show that the actual care which is being delivered adheres to what the patient should have been receiving, to make sure they're actually, you know what I mean, like getting what they're paying for.
Do you handle scribing as well?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think in terms of what we do like the full 360. So before the session, during the session, and then after the session, essentially, with the packaging of claims and then submitting it to the respective clearinghouses and payers.
And how does technology improve the reimbursement stuff? So the claims, this is interesting, right? Because I've done literally hundreds of shows just on insurance. At one point I had the largest insurance and insurtech podcast in the world. How does insurance and insurtech play into the stuff that you're building at ReClym as well?
So I think with ReClym, and I think you have to look at it in two ways. Firstly, at the moment, only 20% at best of therapists accept insurance. 80% are out of network.
Really?
So it's insane figures. Hence, like in London, for example, in the UK, average cost per therapy session, you're probably looking at $60 to $80. In the US, it's around 200 on average. So for us, it's a case of, okay, how do we kind of increase supply by making it as friendly as possible for practitioners to feel like they can actually accept insurance, because you're increasing the chance of success once that claim is actually processed.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing, and we saw in the last couple of months, a lot of companies were building workflows after the claim had already been denied. At that point, it's too late. The admin burden has already started, and of course, there's a cost of around $39 per denied claim. So for us, it's thinking about like how can we actually prevent this claim from being denied by increasing the likelihood of acceptance, by making sure you've essentially done all of the work beforehand. So once it's ready to actually be submitted, you've dotted all of your I's, you've crossed your T's, increasing that likelihood of success.
And what role does artificial intelligence play in building out the proper workflows for these clinicians so that they don't make mistakes that prevent them from actually either A, getting paid or increasing the size of their businesses?
Yeah, exactly. So I think what we're starting to see with ourselves and other companies is using AI, again, in terms of like client onboarding, making sure the documentation is in order, insurance cards and so on and so forth are checked, cross-reference. So yeah, AI essentially is playing that assistant role, doing all of the legwork just to make sure, again, no stone is left unturned. So all the essential therapist or practitioner needs to do is just quickly review, as opposed to actually going ahead or having an admin team do that groundwork. That groundwork has already been done. So in some instances, there isn't a need for that admin worker because the AI is essentially doing that role. All they need to do is deliver the care and actually submit the claim.
And does Agentic AI play any role here where, particularly from a communication standpoint, between the therapist or the service provider and their clients or even potential clients?
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing it more in terms of like scheduling sessions, out of session communication.
Got it.
And even between session AI, because of course now as well, like they say, I don't know, a quarter of Americans in particular are using LLMs for some type of mental health support, which is unsupervised. So we're starting to see some companies integrate AI into their workflows to allow patients to have some interaction between sessions as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, right? So if somebody has an issue or a question or even just something that pops up when they're in between sessions, is there a place for Agentic AI to be able to help them? And actually what you're suggesting is that actually is the case. But how about from a practitioner standpoint, is there a place for Agentic AI or even just AI in particular to structure some of the clinical information or structure some of the clinical data so that the clinicians can actually make better decisions and understand at scale like what their clients are actually experiencing?
Absolutely, and not to give too much away in terms of what we're building, but I think what we're...
Oh, come on, give it away.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
If not, I'm going to call Elizabeth and I'm going to... Sorry, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, no, I think what we're starting to see is, again, so historically in terms of therapy, whether you go once a week, once a fortnight, that was the only context in which the therapist had. But with Agentic AI now, what you're starting to see is what happens in those 167 hours between sessions. So some tools like Ash and a few others were predominantly focusing on like the AI being the therapist, and that interaction was predominantly based on the AI and the patient. But now we're starting to see Agentic AI being used to essentially track what's happening outside of the session and using that context in session to deliver a more well-rounded care process.
Got it. That makes sense to me. I always want to deal with a human as opposed to dealing with Agentic AI, but that's just me. What are the biggest challenges you see in just scaling health tech across the board?
It's trust. And so I think...
But how do you build that trust? Like that's the other thing I was going to ask you is whether it's, giving a new software platform to a clinician or to a team of clinicians or service providers or some kind of patient interaction as well. How do you build and sort of maintain that trust over time?
I think on the patient side is easier in terms of the provide, because again, patients have had the Calm apps, they've had these kind of digital health tools, meditation tools that they've been using, so they're kind of like used to the interface. But in terms of practices, and what I would say is solving workflows, having platforms, having the technology, it may seem cool, but it doesn't really solve the problem for the practitioner because they see a million of these. So the only way to truly gain trust initially is essentially leveraging the relationship of someone who already has their trust and then building your own relationship thereafter. So I think that's essentially what's been successful for us so far, leveraging existing relationship and then through time actually building your own relationship with these practices. Because again, I would say in healthcare in particular, the two issues, it's a long sales cycle, especially if you're integrating some type of insurance reimbursement.
Sure.
But if you're trying to actually even get to a stage where you're converting this practice, converting this therapist, without having some intro or some form of relationship to leverage, you're going to be knocking on a lot of doors, and not a lot of people are going to be answering.
Yeah, fair enough. Particularly if there are a bunch of other, if as you say, they have a million other choices. Is there a way for artificial intelligence to help consolidate all the data, whether for an individual patient or for patients that are alike, to then help the clinicians make actually better decisions than they were making before? Because whether the scribing, at least initially, wasn't as great as it possibly could be, or there were just too many patients, that now artificial intelligence actually helps the clinicians give better service and make better decisions.
Absolutely. I think that's what we're alluding to, whether it's using AI to see, I don't know, what's happening in a patient's professional life, what's happening in terms of physical activity, how many steps are they working, how many What type of music are they listening to? How is this impacting their mood? How often are they level of sleep, and so on and so forth. So I think AI can kind of be connected in so many different like verticals of a person's life, as much as they want to give you access to it. And I think that's the key point. Depending on the patient and the level of autonomy that they're willing to give the AI, the more information. Essentially, is context. And I think in this day and age, again, everyone has the tools, everyone has the platforms, but in terms of data becomes more important now based on what the patient is essentially giving you as far as their story. Right. And the more of their story they're willing to kind of tell you, the more chance that you can actually, it's like even me, again, like I founded ReClym just based on me having significant arguments with my own therapist as far as like misremembering specific topics and so on and so forth that we were discussing.
So and again, that's why I was asking you, because it's like, it's got to be demoralizing a little bit to go into a therapist and they just don't remember all the information they should have about you, even the basic stuff, right? But if they have a system that brings it up, and if it's not reliant mainly on their physical or manual note taking, it's just way better. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, again, universally, that I think even now we're starting to see more adoptions from clinicians, but I think there is still that somewhat old school mentality of pen and paper. This is just how I do it. This is how I'm going to do it because it's just worked for me historically. But yeah, I think with the rising adoption in scribing or some of these tools, absolutely there is more information to leverage, because again, for the patient in particular, it just breaks trust, it breaks therapeutic alliance, which is why the 70% of patients don't make it to 10 sessions. They leave around 5. It's crazy. And I think that's the true issue. Hence why I was saying, yes, a lot of people are building on the supply side, but I think the real issue is, again, on the demand side. How do we make sure people aren't only seeing therapists, but they're actually staying and then receiving the level of care that they should be receiving?
Exactly. Okay, Eliman, this was really, really interesting stuff. Thank you again for your patience at the beginning. Tried to give you a little bit more time at the end as well, just out of fairness. But the conversation was really great. Good luck as you continue to build ReClym Health. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this very important topic.
Michael, thank you. Thank you for having me. You have a great day.
You as well.
Cheers.
Right, bye for now. Okay, that is it today. Another really incredible show for AGTP Insights. Thank you to everybody who joined us on X, on YouTube, and across the board. Give us a thumbs up on today's video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us, as always, on all of our socials, on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you'd like us to discuss on any of our upcoming shows, or any great guests you think we should have on. And also participate with us in real time as well. We'd love to be able to do this. Today is Thursday. We'll be back again Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you again to Martin Ronford. My name is Michael Irwin Waits. Bye for now.